Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is the moment the entire elected population of the county has been waiting for. The elected officials transportation meeting. It's Thursday, October 24th. It's 4:06 p.m. and we're off to a start. It's the call to order. I'm Greg Postman. I'll be chairing today. I have a roll call and a roll call sheet. If you don't mind, I'll just start with Pitkin County. Steve Child. Steve is not here yet. Patty Clapper.
Here.
Francie Jacober.
Here.
Kelly McNicholas Curry.
With enthusiasm.
Okay. City of Aspen, Mayor Tory.
I'm here.
John Doyle.
Here.
Bill Guth.
Not present
Not
today,
present.
I don't think.
Ward Houndstein. Stein.
Present.
That's all you had to say. Sam Rose.
Here.
Rose. Okay. Sorry. Town of Snowmass Village, Mayor Bill Madsen.
Here.
Tom Fritzstein.
Here.
Britta Gustafson.
Here.
Susan Marolt. Not here. Alyssa Schenk.
Here.
Here.
Do we know if people are online? Can we tell?
We were looking earlier and didn't
I'm
see
going to
them.
join on Zoom and I'll
Okay.
for that purpose.
And somebody else I think was on too. I think somebody else was watching online as well. So we will know that, the answer to that question. Jen, are you on?
I am, so I can present later.
Oh, got it. Okay. So you're not monitoring the whole thing from live. Okay. Thank you. So we've got minutes approval. We've got the October 5th, 2023 minutes. And we also have separate minutes for the city and Snowmass on August 13th and 19th, 2024, and the BOCC on September 11th and 25th, 2024. So what I think we need is a motion to, that we have to call them all separately. Each entity has to do a separate roll call. Okay, if you don't mind, I'll just start with the BOCC. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of October, where am I? October
August
5th, 2023. Patty moved. Do I have
Second.
a second from Francie? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
There, but sorry.
The City of Aspen and Snowmass both have August 13th and 19th. I think you need to call that mayors.
So for the minutes, approval of the minutes, Counselor Doyle.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
No, I think do we need a separate
Like a
motion
separate roll
and
call for
such?
each one? I think you need a separate
How
motion.
many times have we done this? And
We do it once a year. We should know this. Brian
It's
knows.
changed over the last few years as well.
Just take the roll call vote based on the same motion.
Okay, same thing we did with a motion.
Thank you. I'll just take a roll call vote. Counselor Doyle.
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein.
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory, I'm a yes.
Okay, and then you've got,
Steve Childs and Susan Roll are online.
Okay.
She just texted me.
they're online. Okay, so welcome Steve and
No
Susan.
one can hear them, they said.
We can't hear you and we can't see you either. But Kelly's going to pull you up, so I think you'll be able to reach Kelly. Okay, now Town of Snowmass Village.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
All those in favor? Tom
Second.
Fritzstein,
Aye.
Britta Gustafson,
Aye.
Alyssa Schenk,
Aye.
Susan Marolt, Madsen, yes.
Okay, thank you. We got through that. I just wanted to welcome you all here. It's actually really great to see everybody in the room. It has been a long time. I think if I can make a quick introductory comment, that I think the frustration many of us have felt is just it's hard to get together, and sometimes our meetings have to cancel because we can't pull a quorum. So what we've discovered is the EOTC is obligated to meet once a year for budget approvals like today en masse, but the rest of the meetings of the year do not have to include the entire membership. So what I think it means is we can get more done more frequently and have work groups work on projects without everyone needing to be there. That's the interpretation that I have heard. So I think that's an improvement. Let's see how it goes.
We're going to talk about that later on the agenda.
We can certainly come back and talk about that some more. I'm going to move now to public comment for items not on the agenda, and I'm looking for people to raise hands. Rachel, come on up.
Is this one on, Brian?
Yes, it is.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Rachel Richards, resident of Aspen. Thank you all for your time so much. I'm going to give a real brief history of EOTC, if I could. When we began this process in the 90s with Snowmass and Picken County, we met every 3 weeks for a long period of time. That's where the expression pizza death came from. And it culminated in about a day-and-a-half retreat at the Aspen Institute, where we settled on the half penny as the source of funding the type of transportation improvements we needed. And the half penny, which only passed by 26 votes, has led to an incredible mass transit system that is second only to the Dr. Cog system down in Denver in terms of passengers it moves and who it carries. It led to the first rural regional transportation authority in the state of Colorado, and it led to the first regional bus transit system in rural Colorado. I am here to ask that this board really reaffirm its commitment to mobility and to managing future traffic growth. This summer was the most we've ever seen, and I think all communities are far from built out yet. And to acknowledge the sales and property tax that the whole valley, except for parts of Garfield, now contribute to that system so that their people can move fast, frequently, and affordably to where they need to go, so that we can have mobility without the single occupant vehicle at all times. And I think we should acknowledge our Upper Valley dependence, severe dependence on a commuting workforce that comes from Down Valley. All this brings me to thanking the City of Aspen for beginning an environmental impact study per NEPA to be able to clear a real solution for the entrance to Aspen. I think that's awesome. And I think that we need to make sure we're truly involving all affected parties in that decision. Because when someone chooses to use their car or to choose mass transit, the entire ride matters. And that will set patterns for traffic on 133. Jim Hooker was very involved in this process because he didn't want to see Brush Creek ever 4-lane. And so I thank you for your time. I realize what weighty decisions you have in front of you. I would strongly encourage you to make sure that EIS process involves everyone in the community and all agencies that are affected by this decision. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. Always educational, always informative. Thank you very much. Okay, public comment. Come on up. I think that's you, Tony.
Okay.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to see everyone together. I think the last time everyone was together was about a year ago. And I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through this really quickly. In your IGA, Greg, I wanted to say thank you very much for coming forward with that explanation about how many times that the EOTC is scheduled to meet. And it does say in the IGA on page 3, it says, the parties hereby agree to conduct regular meetings, including other invited members of the public, to continue to refine and agree upon proposed projects and transportation elements consistent with or complementary to the plan as may be amended from time to time. Regular meetings means on a regular basis, whereas right now in one of your plans that you're scheduled to meet the next time is 1 year from today. So I hope that you can follow Greg's lead and we can get at least quarterly meetings scheduled, and that would probably fit within the legal definition of what a regular meeting is. Then the next thing is that I've asked before all 3 jurisdictions if we could ask for an emergency order from CDOT and hence the federal highway for opening up the 2 lanes, down valley lanes, coming out of the roundabout. It is a dire life and safety issue. When you're in the roundabout in the afternoons and cars are backed up, 20 cars to the hospital, 20 cars to the schools, there's no way if we had an emergency that anyone could get out in a timely manner, much less a safe manner. One of the examples is when they had the swatting incident at the schools. One of the emergency room physicians who lives in North 40, it took him 1 hour to get from North 40 to the hospital. That is unacceptable. So I would like to ask, and if the EOTC doesn't feel that it's within your jurisdiction, I'm more than happy to submit that request as a private person. But I really think that we need to do that so that we can open up in the bus lane on the right-hand side. It's similar to what's across from Pepe Park and also at 7th and Main. So we have already the pullout for the buses there, so it won't interfere. The next thing is, I think you all know that Highway 82 has been considered the most dangerous highway in the state of Colorado. And that's at least 10 years going now. The next thing is that I looked back through a whole bunch of articles, and one of the last safety tours that I went on with CDOT was in 1999 when we looked at Smith Hill Road. Here it is 5 years later, and we're finally getting some progress moving forward on that with the departments, Brian's department, about submitting a funding request for that, and also Lazy Glen. So I'd like to say thank you very much for that, because we're starting to move forward in the right direction. The next thing, I've given many thanks to Aspen City Council for withdrawing the ballot question about converting the Merle to open space for transportation purposes, because it was a nebulous question and it didn't really get us anywhere. And now, as Rachel said, I support everything that Rachel just brought forward to you, is that we have the opportunity to open the EIS, the record of decision, so we can take a look at a lot more alternatives that will work. And then, as you know, one of the things I've been promoting probably 10 years, 15 years now, is the Aspen aerial connection. And there's been some discussion about,
Recording in progress.
I'm sorry.
Keep going. Yeah,
Okay.
you're about out of time, but please
Okay,
finish.
so
Thank
this
you.
here is from October 29th, 2020, when David Pasternak requested, at that time, the EOTC for a feasibility, for funding for a feasibility study. And this is what the results were. I know, Ward, you and I have been going back and forth about how we left it. So this is from October 29th, 2020. The committee discussed moving forward with a staff recommendation to conduct a technical survey for the aerial connection between Brush Creek Park and Ride, Aspen, and Snowmass. While several members expressed interest in learning more at some point, others felt as though such an effort was not necessary. In the end, the committee decided not to move forward with the aerial connection feasibility study or technical survey in 2021. The committee did express interest in reviewing a more thorough analysis of available technologies for public transit within the next few years, but not in 2021. And here we are, 2024. So I think we meet that time frame. It's a few years down the road. So
Okay.
that's where it's
Thank
left. But
you.
thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thought-provoking. Appreciate it.
Can we revisit that in our budget discussion later, please?
It's fine with me. I'd certainly be okay with it. If we have to make a change to the agenda, I don't know. Do we need a vote to change the agenda to include that? Probably not. Okay, good. And we can talk about some of these things in board comment. Okay, is there anything else, public comment? Anyone else like to make a comment in the room or online? I don't know. Is there any way we can see if anybody's online?
Solving technical difficulties.
Yeah,
Recording
still
in
technical
progress.
difficulty there. We've got 11, we can't even get the list of names up, can we? Apologizing to those online right now. There it is, you've got it. *9 to raise your hand if you're listening online and want to make a comment. It might be technically difficult, but we can try. Meanwhile, I did want to say something, comment in response to planning. We have a joint proposal for a raise grant in with is it Northwest COG, and I don't want to read this now, but we're gonna get to that. I think it's worthy of discussion. That we have many people in the community are concerned about trying to make a comprehensive plan, and I'd like to have a discussion about that later on in the meeting, if that's okay with everyone.
Recording in progress.
So now I'm going to skip to the 2024 work plan updates with Linda and Brian.
I wanted to check first. The two members, Susan and Steve, are they able to speak?
Are you able to speak yet, Susan?
Can you
Yes,
hear me?
we
Yeah.
can. Great.
Okay, great, that worked.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
I can hear you too, Steve. Thanks.
And can we turn that screen on below?
Okay, good,
Still
thanks.
trying. That
Thanks.
one's off, yeah. Okay, thank you, Susan and Steve. Linda's going to go with the work plan. Hopefully you can see that, and we'll keep going. Take it away, Linda. And Brian.
Alrighty, so our 2024 projects, most of these are being continued into 2025. Our Brush Creek Park and Ride, we've just started our monitoring and management plan. We hired a expert parking consultant, DJ&A Associates. They've started to collect some data out there. They were out there during the Jazz Aspen Festival, and will come back for a regular commuter day and then also in the winter just to see what sort of activity we get out there, how long people are staying, how many rides are being connected, are being shifted from driving into transit, and we'll also be doing some extensive public involvement out there as well. Our Buttermilk at-grade crossing, we've started some design proposals for that. We're about to sit down with CDOT to get the green light to go ahead with some of those. Our permanent automatic vehicle counters, to refresh your memory, we're putting in 8 of these permanent counters. They will count not only the number of vehicles, but the type of vehicle, so that we get better percentages of the types of travel that are happening all over the county. Those locations are going in at Brush Creek Road, Owl Creek Road, near the airport, McLean Flats, Power Plant Road, at the Castle Creek Bridge, Maroon Creek Road, and at a location just east of Aspen near the North Star Park. Yes, sir.
How about the cost of the counters themselves? That's the software's in here, but how about the cost of the actual units?
That capital cost was around $263,000, and that's being spent in 2024. We're just now finishing the installations on those.
Thank you.
Took us kind of the whole year to work out the bugs on the technology and get the right provider and site out the locations, and so we're finally getting that on the ground. Question, Patty?
Other questions?
Yeah, when will they be finally installed?
This week.
Interesting. It's been a long time coming.
It has.
It's a shame that we've lost the last couple years without putting in some temporary counters while we were waiting for this grand project. No fault of anybody's, but this might be an opportunity for us all to learn about maybe doing things timely and cheaper instead of extended and more costly. But we're almost done. They're almost in, and hopefully they work.
Yes. I believe the county does do temporary counting in different locations all throughout the year. So we haven't not been doing any vehicle counting. It's just been not these permanent locations. But I don't have that information.
I appreciate that. I guess I'm sharing some of my city frustration here because I've asked for some of these numbers. For example, auto traffic counts on the east side of town and such like that. So if that information is out there, then I will make another request to see some of the numbers that you guys have accumulated. Thanks.
Okay. Our Maroon Bells plan is going to start here in the next few weeks. It's a small, the EOTC's investment, that's pretty small, and our involvement is going to be dealing with some of the transportation conflicts on Maroon Creek Road between buses, groups of e-bikers, regular cyclists, and other vehicles. The ABC Bike and Pedestrian Transportation Plan, we still have to get the county's approval of that after I presented it to Snowmass and Aspen. And that's going to be a discussion item in our 2025 budget. And then our Truscott Trail is 90% designed. We are waiting the last 10% to connect it into the tunnel at Truscott, which is a City of Aspen project that we are coordinating with them on the cohesive design to then put it together and bid it as one project. And then I'm going to ask Sam Guarino from the town of Snowmass Village to update us on their projects. And
Welcome,
I forgot
Sam.
to introduce our other staffers, Brian Pettit from the county and Lynn Rumbaugh from the City of Aspen.
Sam Moreno, Transportation Director for Town of Snowmass Village. Two projects that are in the EOTC budget and work plan going on in Snowmass Village. First being the Snowmass Mall Transit Center, which is a project that's been we've been working on for quite some time. We continue to explore some interesting ideas for designs for a transit center solution at the mall, and that'll continue into 2025. And we'll keep working at it, and hopefully we'll have a good solution within the next year that we can move forward with. And then the other project is the walkway from Mountain View Apartments to the Snowmass Mall, around what we will sometimes call Donnie White Curve. On Brush Creek. That project is currently under construction. Paving should begin next week. They'll be putting in painting and delineators, and the project will be completed in spring of 2025, but it'll mostly be finished by the time the snow's flying in a few weeks. So
Great.
that's what I got for Snowmass.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
So, Linda, is that the end? That's the end of your list. And I'm wondering, we want to discuss the Airport Business Center. Is this the time to do that? Would you like to open that, and so we can have this conversation? Our board needs to vote on it, and I'm not. If we can, I don't know if we're ready to vote to approve. I want to poll my board, but could we actually do that today? I'm for point of order. I just don't know if.
As I understand it, some of y'all from Pitkin County wanted to discuss it with the full EOTC. We can do that during the 2025 budget in a few minutes. And then I would come back to the county separately for 2 readings after
Thank
what
you.
is the decision is made here.
Thanks for the reminder. We'll discuss it during budget, but go ahead.
Just clarification on that includes the bridges?
No, that does not include the bridges.
No bridges.
This is like the internal
Yeah,
circulation.
internal study.
Of
And
the
plan.
ABC.
ABC, bike pedestrian plan. And to tee that up, we could just tee it up now. We're going to come back to it. But
It's part of budget.
when it was originally designed, it wasn't designed as an urban area with the density and the traffic volume it has. So that's what the plan is about. What do we have to do to it to bring it up to standard? Is it standard? Yeah, thank you. Kelly?
Can we go back before we move forward a little bit? I just
Certainly.
wondered, can we just have a quick update from Snowmass relative to the transit center planning? Because I know we have the $6 million that we keep carrying forward in the EOTC budget, so I don't know if that's.
Let Bill do it.
Great, thank you.
We have a,
Just the quick and dirty, because I have
Right.
not read any of the news articles on it, and I apologize for not.
the quick
seeing
and
them.
dirty is that we had an initial plan that we came out with. It was a 1-level parking structure that had maintained the parking underneath and had the buses on top. The Planning Commission said that it was too large, recommended denial. So we've gone back and we're looking at a couple different plans. One is kind of an incremental design, which would improve both the raft stop and also the Snowmass shuttle stop. There's also a design for a 2-level parking, 2-level transit that does eliminate the parking in Lot 6. So we are trying to figure out the best path forward and see if there's a way that we can do it that doesn't put us into a 40-month construction schedule, which would be difficult for the mall and all the shop owners up there.
And Mayor, is that a 2025 planning horizon for Snowmass?
I sure hope so.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Tori?
Yeah, I also wanted to know about that project as it's reflected in the budget that we have. But I also was hoping that at some point, and maybe it's when we get on our agenda down to entrance to Aspen questions and stuff, but I would love some background and some history about when the EOTC had funds allocated for both the Snowmass Transit Center improvements as well as the entrance to Aspen, affectionately known for a long time as lock boxes. Those lock boxes, one of them was unlocked. So I would love to have that kind of conversation budgetarily as well as when we get to this entrance to Aspen discussion that we're going to have.
Great, thank you. Other comments, questions, requests? No, okay, then we can move on. This would be a public hearing on the EOTC 2025 budget and work plan. So we'll get a presentation from you, comments, questions from the board, then we'll open it up to public comment.
So our projects for 2025, as I mentioned before, are mostly the same ones that we've been starting in 2024, continuing. Our Brush Creek Park and Ride optimization, which is the monitoring and management analysis. We are going to work with our consultant about questions around putting in restrooms before we decide to maybe put together another bid package for that. That is going to be fairly complicated. We're going to have to have staffing for it, janitorial, and some other complications there. So we need to look at all of those potential costs of that into the future. And then we have joined with the Northwest COG. We joined in a regional EV charging grant application back to the feds. We had applied for one last year and didn't get it. This one is a regional effort, much bigger dollars across the whole region. Should we get that, we'll be able to start putting in the infrastructure for our 34 level 2 chargers out at Brush Creek. Then we've got 4 projects under the Transit Improvement Program, the Buttermilk Crossing improvements.
Sorry, Linda, I just
Yeah.
want to stop for a second here. Does anyone have a question, just before we move off of Brush Creek? Comments, questions, elaboration?
I have a
Francie?
question about, is Bill Guth online?
I don't believe he's here.
So I thought we haven't been able to meet with everybody, but here we are meeting without everybody. I'm confused about what's happening.
I'm going to need advice from staff on that. If we're missing one, is this the, here comes John to save the day. And he's limping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Blue
we've been beating
brought
him
me
up.
for a rough run today, and I took a tumble. But the issue is you have to have a quorum of each body, and we haven't been able to achieve a quorum. In this case, we do have a quorum from each body for this meeting.
Okay, so it's not that everybody has to be here.
Correct.
So you finished jurisdiction.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that. Okay, Francie, your question's answered. Kelly has a question now.
Sure. It would be great to get a sense of what our Brush Creek Park and Ride usage is. I don't know if you can tell us that now, but maybe it's something we just build into our regular reporting to us.
That's a big part of what this monitoring and management analysis is. We have some preliminary data that's very interesting, but it was taken during the Jazz Festival. Surprisingly enough, there's a lot of cars who just come in and turn around and go back out. But I don't have that data in a report yet. It was just starting to be compiled. So that's going to be a big part of what we're doing out there, is understanding what's going on.
And will that be comprehensive with
Yes.
Final destination, means of transportation? How many are cycling through shale bluffs? You know,
Final destination, what we'll be able to figure out through license plate readers, both just putting them out there we could leave them out there for a week, 2 weeks, is the number of cars who come in, how long they stay for. And then by using RAFTA's boarding and alighting data, both up and down valley, and then also the Snowmass shuttles data, we can figure out how many people got on a bus. After parking their car there, we wouldn't know the individual people doing that, of course, but we would have a better idea of how much the lot's being used to shift those trips to transit. There's also just a lot of business activity out there, folks leaving trailers and outfitters park out there and mountain bikers park out there. There's a lot of different uses that we're pretty excited about the technology that we're going to have to just better understand it.
got Great. Thank you. Ward?
Question, when the improvements were made at the park and ride, I think I recall that the infrastructure for electricity for the EVs was laid down, so we have that in place, and we're just looking for the actual level 2 chargers right now.
That's right. And we also put in, working with Holy Cross, we put in an additional electrical vault out there to accommodate both our new lighting system and the EV chargers. So it's all ready to go. We need the money to actually put the gas station things, I don't know what they're
Gas
called.
station things?
The things.
Terminals?
Gas station avoidance things?
That's not my wheelhouse, but
The
yes.
Chargers.
The chargers, thank you.
Gas station, I love it.
Yeah, we're pretty confident we're going to get this grant. It was a comprehensive, big project done with the whole Northwest COG through the mobility program up there, using, I believe there's 6 or 7 counties in the partnership.
And then one more question. Who handles enforcement at that? I mean, there are a lot of people that park their vehicles there for a long period of time. Who handles enforcement of that?
City.
The city.
Well, right now, the city's parking department, as it has the capacity to, with what we have available to know how long people are parking out there now, they do enforcement, and then the county sheriff's department comes in and like moves out long-term campers and abandoned vehicles and such like that. But this monitoring and management, the technology we're going to understand and hopefully purchase in the future will make that much easier, less staff intensive for whoever's enforcing it.
Yeah, it seems an anomaly that the city should be doing the monitoring there, and I'd like to, see if it's in the EOTC budget to find the monitoring and enforcement there and not be a burden on the city.
I can't speak for the city on that, but they would probably agree. Yeah, it's, yes.
We want out of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why they would. They've got quite a bit of parking to deal with on their own, so that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Greg, I think we're
Patty.
working on that.
I was going to say, are we having discussions about that?
It's ongoing right now. We're looking at hiring. We've gone out for RFP and done interviews with companies to take over parking management.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that will all be folded into this study, the monitoring management study. Our consultant's gonna have quite a lot of work to do, which we like.
I see Mirta Mallory in the back of the room, and I think about bicycles every time I see her. And I'm just wondering if we're able to monitor vehicle traffic and bus ridership. I'm assuming there'll be a WeCycle stand out there at some point, and I don't know, but I'm assuming that's part of the plan. And is there any way we can measure potential riders or actual riders? I guess if WeCycle gets out there, we'll be able to, but we can't determine the market for it until we try it. Is that how that works?
I can't speak for Mirta, but yes, particularly because currently there's not a universally accepted safe route between Brush Creek and town. That's what the bridge projects are about, of course.
Chickens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to ask one last thing on this, and that's about the lighting system you described the other day. I just wanted everyone to be able to hear. Brush Creek Village, of course, is concerned, and neighbors probably across the way in McLean Flats elsewhere concerned about lighting and W/J. And I understand this is the state of the art in lighting, and it'll meet our dark skies criteria to some extent.
Yes, it's extensive. It's on a very complicated computer program that we can operate out there with a cable, and also we eventually will be able to operate it remotely. After we got it installed, ComDev, we went out there one night and tested it for their requirements for dark skies and also adequate lighting. A big concern in the parking lot is workers who come back to their car late at night. The lights now shut off at 10 o'clock, but they will activate when a person walks or drives under them. So an individual person coming in there after the lights have shut off can be lit, but it's also really easy to adjust them. So we were, so far so good. I haven't received any complaints on it yet. We will be testing it in the middle of winter to make sure that it's meeting all those needs, not too dark, not too bright.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Ward?
Yeah, about the heated bathrooms and homeless people and confrontations between homeless people and users of the park and ride. I'm really curious about what kind of reports we've had. I know there have been some instances in the past, but I'd like to be kept up to speed on how that's, what the behavior is at the park and ride.
The last we heard from our sheriff's deputy who's in charge of patrolling out there, they're able to do a lot more of that than in the past. There is one particular individual who's been in the paper who was living out there that we were actually finally able to move out. We haven't gotten any recent reports about harassment lately. But this consultant that we hired for this study has worked with all kinds of parking lots everywhere, particularly in mountain tourism communities, and where there are a lot of workers, of course, living in their vehicles, and also different types of unhoused folks, whether law-abiding or not. And so that's going to be a part of the analysis. And what are our enforcement options and best practices in that area? It's probably going to be complicated, I would imagine.
Bill?
I think it's really complicated, but clearly we have a housing crisis, and enforcement is challenging. I mean, should we be exploring opportunities to accommodate these people? I mean, we had, during COVID, it was it was an encampment, I guess. But is that something that we should be looking at for that same area again?
In our mind, on our project team, that is part of what we're going to look at, because particularly we've gotten feedback from Sam at Snowmass that you all have a program up there. You didn't have a program up there to house workers in your parking lot? Maybe it was somebody else. The peer cities that we're looking at for this is Lake Tahoe, Jackson Hole, and Park City. And they have those same sorts of issues. So we are not going into it assuming that we're not set up to let people live out there. It will be part of the questions.
I may just add into that a little bit. So the county has engaged a firm to help us do planning around homelessness and homeless services. And so there were some issues with the safe outdoor space is what you're referring to that we set up. We don't have the infrastructure there, and we also found that it wasn't a good path going forward. And so we do have this enforcement issue. Like you said, we're in this space right now. But we will really be looking forward to being able to present to bodies in the future, these bodies in the future, about more supportive housing types of options that have been proven to actually move people from being unhomed to housed. And so we are working on that issue with law enforcement. We'll be working with our folks who are managing the parking lots, and we are trying to come up with a plan around that now.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, John. Steve Child has a question. Let's give it a try.
How do you know?
Well, a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just anecdotal information about the Brush Creek Park and Ride. I am a frequent user of it. I don't understand why anybody drives into town from there and doesn't just park there and ride the Raptor bus into town unless they live in town or they have a truckload of tools or something and need to drive, because it is so convenient. Parking lot is great. There are always parking places there. There's room for more people to park there. When I get there at the end of the day, the parking lot is largely empty. It is heavily used by people coming in, commuters coming to work every day, and they park there, they ride the bus into town, they ride the bus back out at the end of the day. It's working for commuters hopefully the situation with the long-term parking can be solved and the people camping there. But I wish more people would use it, and all of you should go out there and explore the facilities out there. It's like really, the job we did is really great. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, Brian, you looked like you were about to say something.
I was just, we've got the rest of the budget to.
Right, I know. I was about to say, let's keep moving. You've got
He's the
12 minutes
sergeant
to
at
finish
arms.
that. All right, go ahead.
I have one more question. If it's possible during this monitoring, somehow to do what Steve brings up is the delta in time, somebody getting out of park and ride and taking a RAFTA bus into town versus somebody just driving their vehicle into town.
It's huge. There's some days when it's a full hour. Okay, back to the budget. Thank you.
That's
Thanks
a good
for that
suggestion for the
digression.
analysis. Thank you. And then just the other projects I mentioned in 2024 that are continuing, should you all approve the ABC plan and the small amount of the Maroon Bells work that will be remaining. And then finally, our much discussed vehicle counters. We are going to be getting the training from RECOR so that we all understand how to download the data and look at it and present it into a report that means something to normal people.
Who's normal people? Oh, never mind.
Me.
There aren't any.
Non-engineers. No offense to engineers.
Okay.
These are some of our project highlights and costs. I don't know if I need to go through them individually. They were in the packet, and I'm realizing now that I should say something about our revenues for the year. So the transit sales tax has the 1% pass-through that just automatically goes to RAFTA. And then there's a half cent where 80% goes to RAFTA, Town of Snowmass Village, and City of Aspen for their transit systems. And then the rest comes to the EOTC. And then we have a use tax, a little bit of interest, and some other revenues. The total revenues for 2025 are projected at $3,481,572. Our expenditures, tentative, and I'll get to that in half a second, is $2,549,175. That could be reduced by $1,068,355 once the Federal Highway Administration reconciles the FLAP grant that paid for the Brush Creek project. They built in a pretty substantial contingency into the total bill that we had to show a match for, but it's looking like we won't have to pay that. So our likely expenditures in 2025 will just be $1,480,820.
Great, thank you.
And these are highlighted projects. In addition to these, we have the ongoing valley-wide WeCycle contribution, which is $140,000, and then proposed $115,000 for the X Games transit subsidy. And we have a representative here from SKICO, when the public hearing is opened, that would like to talk about that.
Got it. Great. Other questions on this? We were going to discuss ABC bike ped transportation. Do you want to wait for that, or do we want to open that for discussion now before?
And you can approve it as part of the budget, so whenever you want to talk about any of these, this would be the appropriate time.
I'd like to get that out of the way if we can. Can we discuss that? I think we need a description. I know there were some questions about what it actually is and how far does it go, what does it entail?
Sure.
Does it involve stoplights?
Don't know yet. Well, so the county engineer, myself, Brian, some of us others, transportation geeks in the valley, when we saw that the lumberyard was starting to go into design, we realized that the bike and pedestrian access from there into the ABC is going to change. That whole configuration moving into there, that right in, right out at the eastern end of the ABC is going to be closed. There's going to be a short section of frontage road.
Bless you.
And we also, at the same time, those of us who work at Public Works and try to walk around the ABC and bicycle, it was a light industrial park that turned into a neighborhood or a town without a post office, as Brian says. So there wasn't any comprehensive bicycle, pedestrian, or really transportation planning done at the time it was put in. So the lumberyard triggering these improvements is we felt, timely opportunity to look at the whole district and all of the bike and pedestrian safety issues in it, which we feel are considerable safety issues and access.
Right.
So that's why we are proposing it to get started on now.
Got it. And I just wanted to make sure, my board held it back. Are there questions remaining on that project that we want to discuss? Kelly?
You know, the reason we wanted to discuss it here was to really check in with the city related to the lumberyard planning and get a better understanding of how you all are thinking about comprehensive mobility planning for that area in light of potential airport project, in light of presentations we've all heard from Edward Olemans related to interconnectivity and broader planning. That, you know, some of the concern was, okay, we're going to pay this money to do this stuff here now, and then in 2 to 3 years we're going to pay more money to do a bigger scope of analysis and hopefully design for the broader neighborhood. And does it make sense to do that and spend that money twice? Does it make sense to try to think as comprehensively as we can now and sort of identify some goals for the near term versus the far term? So that was why, that's why I think anyway we had requested to bring this discussion here today, because we don't totally know what your planning is at for the lumberyard and how it relates to just localized mobility planning versus broader mobility planning.
I'll take a stab at answering
Go
a little
ahead,
bit.
Tori.
So where our planning is we understand that we need an access plan, right? We have several years of construction on the lumberyard ahead of us. So we have what we currently have is a CDOT approved access plan for the property to get work going on there. We would more than welcome some master planning in that entire area, and that includes the airport and what it lends to that scope as well. At this point, you know, we're as flexible as we can be. We are continually trying to leave ourselves in a place where we can adapt a little bit, but we have heard from CDOT that internal circulation at the ABC, meaning using that small frontage road, and accessing the traffic light that's currently existing is not an opportunity. Maybe it is if the county were to be looking at redevelopment of that frontage road and how that intersects with the light that's there. But right now we're not there. This process is not there. So we'd be extremely excited to work in conjunction with airport planning and with ABC improvements. And right now, we've just done what we can to make sure that we have access to get work going on the project.
Great, thanks, Tori. Ward?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. First of all, Edward's been invited, I think, several times to present to the city council, and has yet committed to making his presentation to the city council, and I extend the invitation again. I think all of our planning has basically been multimodal between the lumberyard and Aspen with car-to-go, we cycle transportation via cars, but in part of our scope, we expanded our scope to have a grade separated bike pedestrian underpass at the entrance, and would certainly invite the EOTC to help fund that. That was an $8 million add to phase 0 of the infrastructure of the lumberyard.
At the entrance to the lumberyard?
Yes.
Okay.
Where that trail that parallels Highway 82.
I see Steve's got his hand up. John, did you have your hand up? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I heard from Edward earlier this week, and he mentioned that he and Michael Miracle have presented to CDOT and have presented to the Urban Land Institute Advisory Service Program, and they're looking at starting another process that's going to cost $130,000, take 6 months. He's reluctant to show it to the broader public until he's got all his ducks in a row.
So they're not coming tonight?
no, they're not coming tonight, but we can discuss a little bit about teeing it up for when they do come.
I've been urging him to present.
Yeah, we've talked to them about that. Thanks, John. Steve Child.
Yeah, I've been urging the commissioners at least, and now I want to tell it to the broader audience of the two towns. I think that I totally agree that we need safer pedestrian and bicycle access around the AABC area. But I think that agreeing with Kelly that we need to do a more comprehensive plan. I would start from the Owl Creek Road and go clear to the Service Center Road and investigate the possibility of having a frontage, I would call it a frontage road, but a road going all the way from there, eliminating the light at Harmony Road. If a light needs to be added by the lumberyard project, let's take another one out off the highway so we're not increasing the number of lights along that stretch. But I think could be some really good solutions if we look at the broader area like Kelly suggests. Not to say that we shouldn't be planning these, what is proposed here today, but I think it should be something much broader. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. John, Francie, and then John Francie. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was hesitant to approve this when you presented it to us before, for the same reason that Kelly says. I wanted a more comprehensive approach to the entire area. But I can see that within the AABC right now, there needs to be some changes a little bit more immediately, since this organization seems to move rather slowly. If we would restrict it to within there and not try to deal with lights on the highway and access to the highway with a major 2-lane road, that kind of thing, if we were going to restrict it to how can people get around the AABC safely, and then I would be willing to, approve funding this, but not if it goes into, how to deal with
Thank
the
you.
lumberyard.
Brian wanted to add something to that.
Because it would be internal circulation between the lumberyard and all of the ABC out to CMC, but it wouldn't preclude any other access points for pedestrian or bikes in that study that would take place. And maybe, Linda, you can talk about the RAISE grant and what's its scope
Right,
is.
thank you. I was hoping we could get to that. Thank you.
Yeah, so we meaning the county, the city, the town, signed on as supporters. The airport advisory board, and CDOT were part of a RAISE grant. It's a big federal program. I'm sure you all have heard about RAISE grants being provided in Glenwood and other spots. We applied for it to do comprehensive planning for the airport, but also everything in between Brush Creek and the roundabout. We did not get selected for the first round, but the federal government kicked our application back and said it was highly recommended and very strong to go back for the second round of funding, which is happening in January. It's due in January. That could take 4 to 6 months for us to hear back, and then it might be another year before we get the money. So that is a $2 million planning grant that we would be providing $500,000 for a local match were we to get it. It would include the airport multimodal plan and this whole corridor. So that, should we get that grant, we wouldn't even start working on that for probably 18 months. Meanwhile, we could still get going on some of these more acute bike and ped safety issues at the ABC.
Thank you for that. Patty?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to add that I think since I've been part of studying the Airport Business Center for many years, over many times of time, because of the growth in that area and the congestion and the fact that there was no parking on the county roads in there, et cetera, et cetera. I think studying this now is just the first piece of the puzzle that I'm sure, and let's focus on this, if we're not already focused, on incorporating that into the broader study. So let's at least, for me, spend this now, kick it off, so we at least start a process and maybe do some of those emergency interim issues to keep the public safety in there, keep the public safe in there, and then make sure we can incorporate it into the bigger picture when we receive the grant from.
When? Yes.
I'm going to be very positive.
We're gonna get it.
And then so it's something we can incorporate into that. But we're going to need a lot of information, and we better get started now rather than wait and try and do it all in 18 months. I'd rather kick it in sooner.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Greg.
Kelly, are you?
Yeah, do you envision that the information, I guess I'll just say, I would expect the information that would be collected under this $250,000 grant could inform the future Rise project?
The ABC plan? Well, yes, it would be part of the whole area, but I think the answer is yes. It would all be part of one whole district, but with the individual issues we've talked about, sort of ABC bike and ped issues are a little bit separate from the larger, bigger vehicle, airport, whole corridor issues. Did I answer that?
Sort of, yeah.
Sounded kind of
I
fumbled.
think the answer was yes.
It's a little squishy.
So
already,
what
but
I've
I
heard,
got you.
what I've heard is, Steve, you could give us a thumbs up. If we were to poll our board right now in order to give you the opportunity to come back to us with 2 readings, could we just do a thumbs up here, or do you need
And you can just approve it as part of the budget
what I thought you
process.
said.
Okay.
And then approve the
You
whole
said
budget.
that once. I'll get it the 3rd time.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Kelly.
And just, I just want to respond to Ward's volley there, I guess. And, I'm happy to entertain any good idea at this board. I think asking the EOTC to partially fund an $8 million project, I would expect that we would get brought in some early level conversations on what that looks like.
Real
Thanks,
quick
Kelly.
question on the budget. Where, I don't see all of these dollars that are up here outlined under projects. Like, I don't see the ABC, but I don't see the Maroon Creek implementation plan
In here?
under
This is
project.
this current year, that's not next year.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the 2025 budget.
Okay.
Oh,
Are you
2000
looking at this page, Patty?
2025
Yes.
budget.
I'm looking at this, yeah. The one
Yes.
that was in my packet.
The way this budget reads, a lot of the projects are up in different areas described somewhat differently.
That was a great.
You're saying it's
I'm
they're in
with
there.
They're in
Patty.
there.
I don't see under project, it says Snowmass Mall Transit Station, line dashes, no allocation. Pedestrian access to Snowmass Village Mall had an outlay in this year, nothing future. Brush Creek P&R flap grant match, Buttermilk pedestrian crossing improvement, We Cycle site planning.
Others.
Other grants is 140. So I guess what I'm missing in here is this AABC study. And I also don't see an allocation for the X Games request. Is that in the 140?
That's not in there yet because you all are discussing that today.
Okay.
The We Cycle site, other grants and contributions, 140, that's the We Cycle Valley-wide contribution that happens every year.
Okay.
And what was the other one?
The
Bike ped.
ABC, is that part of the 397, 257?
Or is it under technical
It's under
services?
professional,
Services.
it's under professional services, studies and planning. It's up
Okay, so
there.
it's up
Studies,
a
plannings,
few.
consultants.
Yeah.
Okay.
292.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's up there. And then so just to clarify, the gold bar is 2024 and the green's 2025.
Right, we're just trying to figure out where the dollars line up here.
And
So
that
that's
flap 1 point so and so million, that's gonna go away.
Okay, I want to keep us going.
Well, just for
Could you
a
just,
clarification.
sorry, Linda.
Is this $200,000 for the AABC internal circulation study? Is that appropriate at the EOTC budget, or is that appropriate in the Pitkin County budget?
Thanks for the question. Looking at you two.
EOTC staff felt it was appropriate for EOTC because it's regional in nature. Folks from all up and down the valley drive there, use it. That's why we felt it was an appropriate EOTC project.
And they connect to it with bicycles, because it's on the bike path.
You know, maybe you're right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that fits. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure. I'd kind of have to see language to be precise. But I'm supportive. I just am wondering if this is if that's an EOTC expense.
I'm wondering, can we move it forward today and drill down on that later? Just because it's so hard to keep this ship going?
Yeah, I don't know, Greg. I mean, if it does not fit under the description of how funds from the EOTC should be allocated, then I would have a hesitancy to approve it. Maybe somebody can just clarify it. I just don't.
It looks painful when you walk up here, John. Maybe just stay. Sorry. Oh,
Susan and Steve
Susan,
both have
thank
their
you. I
hands up.
just saw your hand, and thank you.
Oh, that's okay. I just have a question about the other expenditures, the last
Let's clarify. this
line
first.
item on the budget of 397, 257. Can you just let us know what's in that number?
We're going to get to that. I want to take
Okay.
this as far as we can. I think John's coming to help.
Well, I was gonna ask, Tori, is it a legal, are you concerned about the legality of the expenditure? Or what's your concern specifically?
Primarily, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is toward alternative modes of transportation not involving automobiles, which is a transit, a multimodal approach to trying to move people. So it fits from that standpoint. And we can check with our county attorney and ensure that the expenditure is legal, but I'm certain that it is because it's not unlike the bike path or the trail that's being constructed in Snowmass right now. So it fits in that realm of reality. It's just the ABC, which is a community and not a trail in Snowmass. Does that make sense?
It does, and that puts it in reference. I was wondering if in the enabling legislature, et cetera, for these funds, if there was some discussion about regionality, and if it hits that mark for regionality, or if this was a more localized project. That's all I'm saying.
Understood.
And again, I support it. I was just wondering, is this in keeping with what EOTC pays for?
Process-wise, if it's a question of the legality of it versus a policy decision, you could put a condition on the funds, subject to, approval, through the county attorney who serves as attorney for the EOTC, since we are the fiscal agent. If it's a policy question, then you need to resolve that at this table.
Greg?
Got it.
Because then I would call into question Snowmass's bike pedestrian. Is that regional? And which I think it's appropriate there.
Right.
And I think this has more of a regional impact because of its location.
Or the Truscott to Owl Creek
Yeah.
connection that we're paying for.
Okay, I want to just
But that's a good
take
question.
temperature. No, it's a very good question, and I'm glad we're bringing
Steve
it up.
still has his hand up.
Steve's hand is up somewhere. Okay, Steve?
Thanks,
John.
Greg. I think it's entirely appropriate that the EOTC is looking at this internal transportation around the AABC. It is not just a Pitkin County project. It has been precipitated by the city-owned lumberyard project, which is in the AABC also. And it also is directly related to the flow of traffic on Highway 82, which impacts the transit ridership, the transit, how long the buses take to get into town, how many people are riding their bicycles instead of driving their cars. All of those things come into play. If there were 300 people at the lumberyard project all getting in their cars and trying to drive into town every day, it would be a disaster. So it's totally appropriate that the EOTC is looking at this and putting money into it.
Thanks, Steve. John, I just want to check in on our monitor here. It'd be great to have the monitor up.
It's not working.
It's not at all. It's just dead. in the
I asked him
water.
to look
Okay.
at it an
You
hour
already
ago.
tried, okay. I give up.
I'd have to jump
I
up
declare
in front
defeat.
and plug some things in.
Right.
But we need to answer.
Go for it. Yeah, we don't mind.
We need to
If you
ask-
want to do it while we can keep moving.
We need to answer the question about
I
what's
wanted
in
to
the
get to-
397.
I wanted to get to Susan's question, and then I'm going to get to the X Games, because that's
that-
next to me.
It's easier over there.
Easier from that corner? Yeah. Okay. There was a question from Susan about a line item in the budget, 300 and change, and I need
Yes.
somebody to follow up on that.
Yes.
Other
She
expenditures.
wants to know what's in that.
That number includes a lot of maintenance out at Brush Creek, snow plowing, and some other items. I believe that is where we put the X Games line item in the other expenditures. And a lot of things get put into that one that I will have to get back with you on for more details. Because off the top of my head, I don't remember everything that's in that. It's pretty long miscellaneous items that end up down in that line item. I apologize for that.
Okay, so to follow up on that, will we get a list of that? We can. Okay, I just want to check in with Susan, but I'd like to bring, oh, here he comes. We may have a monitor shortly. I'd like to bring John Rigney from Ski Company up. When we get toward, yeah, thank you. You'll remind me. John. Hello, Brian. Welcome, John. Hey, we've got a monitor.
All right.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Just leave that
Maybe.
picture.
Very interesting picture.
We make incremental improvements. Okay, welcome. Sorry for the, we're just trying to get our monitor up in case there's a visual that we have to look at. But go ahead.
All right. John Rigney, Aspen Skiing Company. Hello. Thank you for having us. Thanks for the consideration. And look, while we've collectively hosted X Games for 24 years, for a lot of different reasons, and there's probably a lot of opinions, this is about transit, right? The safe and adequate transportation of our destination and local guests that choose to attend X Games. We've been lucky to have the support of EOTC for the last 22 years. For the last 16, it's been at this same max of $115,000 in the form of reimbursement. Actually, three of the last 4 years, we actually haven't used all of the 115 for what it's worth. The difference this year is, like, I used to have all this support in advance because we would have multi-year agreements on the event, and by and large, general consensus amongst the electorate that, you know, we were behind this. This year was off-contract year, and I'd spent the last, 14 months trying to get it back, and I knew that there was exposure, that if I did that, even though everyone knew I was going about that I would have to almost come back and kind of reapply, so to speak, for this kind of support. If you take a step back, way back when, we supported this for a number of reasons, but mainly, like, we were filling beds at a critical time of year. Back then, January wasn't what it is now. Now it exceeds February and it rivals March. But that was a community initiative. Global television promoting both our sport and this resort in its entirety. That was another one. I would say dialogue with youth, right? 70% of the people that watch X Games are under the age of 34. 1 in 3 teenagers consumes it, right? So those are the main reasons. Yes. Do we love celebrating athletic achievement? Absolutely, positively. Isn't it awesome that 6 of the 19 people on the half pipe team for the U.S. ski team are Aspen kids, ADSC products. Absolutely. And they get to do this in their background. We're about generating trial, right? Because this place is stickier than every other place. So those were the reasons that we went about it. And I would just conclude by saying 2 things. One, reminder, you're supporting, like, we're taking the lead on a community-wide bid to bring the X Games to town. It is the best property in the business of athletic kind of endeavors in free skiing and snowboarding. I'm around. I know most of you, and I know that times change, but I'm also like, if there's time or there's a need to discuss, debate in further, venues, like, I'm all in. Like, I think I understand this. I think I've served as a community steward on this and other events for a long time, and I appreciate your time and hopefully your support.
Thanks, John. I think that perhaps it might be useful to have questions from the board now. We could open it up to questions, and then just remind me, Brian and Linda, if I need to come back for any other detail other than X Games after when we do public comment. Let's go to questions from the board.
I have a question.
Francie.
I'm confused. What is the rub here? What actually are you talking about? I'm a little confused. Did you seem to be saying that this year is really different than any other year? And could you fill that in a little bit for me?
Yeah. In years past, we would have 5-year increments where essentially we were in the pre-sketch of a budget, and whereas this year the contract came to an end. So it's kind of like we're doing a one-off.
The contract
1 year.
between the EOTC and Skico?
Aspen Skiing Company and at the time ESPN, now it's MSP.
That contract. Okay. Okay. So now but that was last year. So
that was the last 22 years. But
no,
this
I
year
mean
I was asked to come up and just almost explain again, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And you're going to have to apply for it. I'm paraphrasing the message, but it was like, we need you to show up and we need you to restate.
But I thought last year was the beginning of that new company. I forget what it's called. What's it called?
MSP.
What?
2 years ago, they took over the ownership of the property, but our agreement superseded the purchase. So we were in the middle of a 5-year cycle. We completed the last 2 years of the cycle. Now we're in the middle of a 1-year agreement.
Okay.
Is there more?
No.
Kelly.
I mean, I'll opine on what I think has changed. In the 5 and 10 and 22 years prior, you didn't charge people. So now MSP has privatized an event and is asking for the public subsidy in support of that privatization. So the profile from where I sit has changed. So I don't, like, we all want to support each other here, but I do think it makes sense to come and kind of re-request those funds. And particularly where I'm sort of a little confused on how this all works out is that the numbers are so much smaller that I can't envision, I guess, how the changes in use of RAFTA to support the event. It would help to understand what did that ridership look like last year? What do we expect it to look like this year to support an event that is smaller and costs people? So, and you may not be able to tell us that today, but I do think it's reasonable to ask for that information annually to understand what we're actually contributing to.
Ken?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple things. We are the ones asking. There's not anyone else. The owners of the event are definitely moving to a charge model, and there's been a charge model in effect for 12 years because they had music, but it was only for the music. Now the music is embedded into the experience, and they are going forward with charging. Like, I don't want to speak for them, but I probably can semi-articulately. I think it's more about, for us, our spend on transit for this event like severely exceeds $115,000. It's much, much higher. So even if the scope of the event in terms of the number of attendees is going to go down by a percentage, we are without question going to spend far more than the request here on transporting people to the games.
Then how do you draw down on it? Because you said you didn't use the whole allocation, so I'm just curious what. what exactly is our proportion? hoping to
Most of
support?
what we do with you is typically through RAFTA. We book as much as humanly possible through RAFTA, and we pay that tab, and this largely goes against that tab.
But then you're paying more for different
For the
service,
third party,
different transportation
yeah,
service.
we've-
Okay,
we've-
that's really
and
helpful
we've used
to understand.
everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I just,
see
I also
questions
just want to
from
acknowledge
Ward
that
and then
I think
Patty.
SKICO is the biggest payer into RAFTA, so I
Think
get,
so.
I get how the request is reasonable in that respect.
Jen, just to be clear on this, that this is for additional rolling stock to handle the increase in passengers from the park and ride into the event. We, in the past, have seen Estes Park buses. Is that what this is, to help fund?
Yeah, well, obviously, we lean hardest on people that we don't have to bus in and do deadheading and put up. But it's RAFTA plus whomever. We've used school buses, we've used Rocky Mountain National Park, we've used, I think the most recent vendor was Ramblin'. But yeah, it's everybody, and they all follow the same general routing. And when they emanate down valley, because a lot of these guys stay over, they'll just sweep what they can on the way up the valley. I mean, we do whatever we can. We throw all our skier shuttles at it and kind of repurpose it to just meet the demands and the times that people head in and out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patty?
So, you're not using like they did for Jazz Aspen, where you get to the park and ride, and then they had those really nice luxury buses. You're just using RAFTA stock supplemented.
I'm using the RAFTA luxury buses and anyone else whose buses I can get my hand on.
So,
We could never do the smaller, there aren't enough of those smaller buses to do what we're doing. We're using the RAFTA, we're using the double articulated ones.
well, the
we gotta
buses
move
that
quantity.
did service the Jazz Aspen were luxury, but they were big buses, but they were very nice. But anyway, I just want to make sure we weren't hiring a company like they did for, we're supplementing the RAFTA stock as need be to get people to and from the event.
I am as efficient as humanly possible.
I know that. I've worked with you a lot. So I was pretty much against this coming into this meeting because of the paid aspect. We're taking an event that has been known for being a free event for our community. Last year, they upped the ante with a special seating area for a payment. This year, the whole event, but they've incorporated now the DJ music into the whole event. Rather than people that have to pay for to hear the music. I'm just concerned about the 115,000, but it says up to 115,000. So maybe we can put in some amount up to rather than the whole 115,000. That's just putting out there for conversation.
Thank you. Can I go to Steve and then Francie? And then I see Tom. Steve, go ahead.
So I remember when they were presenting to us for the special use permit for this, that they said even though there are however many paid seats, maybe 5,000 or something, the general grounds are still open to the general public, and they expect several, maybe 20,000 people being there on site, even though they're not paying, they're not in the prime spot, but they are there. So it's more, there still are a lot of just the general public going for the ambiance and to get the free Red Bull drinks or whatever whatever they go there for.
Thanks. John, could you add some clarity to that?
Yeah, you
We know
bet.
there's an unpaid section.
Because it's fully ticketed, Steve, they're saying that there's 5,000 paid guests and that there's up to 3,000 staff, vendors, athletes, support crews, et cetera. So it actually it's capped.
Well, I think Steve's asking, when she presented to us, Valerie, I think.
Yeah.
She was talking about how the lifts are all open to skiers, and the skiers are going to be coming down and being around the event.
Totally. And I can tell you there's never been a day of those kinds of numbers skiing on that mountain. But no. During the day, if people have a pass or a ticket or a skier, they're just going to walk up Panda Peak. That's as is. The crowds for X Games tend to swell into the afternoon, into the evening. And those will be capped at that 5,000, 8,000 number.
So we've got 5,000 paying, 3,000 support and athletes and all that. But then there are people who can come in and not be part of the paying thing, but still be in the circus
They're, no, they're on the fringes, I believe. They're on the
On the
outside.
fringes. Yeah, so we're anticipating that we're gonna have people who aren't paying anything that can still get in. Is that right? That's what I thought. we
Really,
were
if you
told.
think about it, think of the footprint as two different things. During the day when we're open for skiing, we'll basically have a fence line that is to the right of Summit Express, Looker's right, and that will be the entrance for people who have tickets. For anyone who's skiing, they're skiing and skiing until 4 o'clock, and then the egress, they come off the mountain. Then that fence line will open even further. So once you're in, and then I think they have, some measure of whatever, like higher end, small.
The thing that they could never seem to tell us was how many people would actually be there. And I thought maybe it was proprietary and they didn't want to tell us. So that's the thing, is trying to get a grip on how many people will actually be total there during, whether it's night, afternoon.
I think at night it's capped at 8. Prior to night, it's 8 plus skiers.
8,000 total, including the 5,000 paying.
You got it. So in skiers, your rough estimate is maybe you get, on a day like that, you'll get 200 skiers, something like that.
But you don't know how many people may decide to walk up in the evening. They don't have any control over that. I could go out there, ride the bus, and walk up outside the fence line, or during the day, ski down the fence line. I just don't get to get inside the fence line. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And Valerie said that there would be people, they could get really close to slope style and if they were skiers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But they're not
whatever
paid.
access you've had in the past as a skier is exactly the same.
And I don't think that the event planners have any control over how many numbers ski down the mountain or walk up the mountain during the day or during the evening. I mean, that's kind of out of their control. Like
Okay.
is my understanding anyway.
Alyssa.
Can I just ask a question? It's my understanding that the first 500 high school students get in free?
Yeah, you took my closing comment.
Sorry.
Look, we're working on the details, but to the comment, and I think a couple of you made it about pay, 2 things are in play. One, there's going to be a 50% off deal for Roaring Fork Valley residents until whatever that capacity goes out. 2, we're working on a program that we're going to be able to roll out towards the first fill-in-the-blank high school students that come on site. There'll be a free aspect for high school students. We still have to iron out all the details.
But they're not, so they're not in the same area as paid people, but
They are.
They are.
Yeah, they are.
And their numbers are counted as part of the cap.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
taking the cap up.
So
officially. It's the
50%
same.
off for Roaring Fork Valley residents.
Yep.
And then the first 500.
How about you let me script that, and I will put it out proudly in a press release. But that's the gist.
I just want to understand it.
You got it.
Got it. That's good. That is a community benefit.
Huge.
And
Yeah.
I think mostly it's kids that really enjoy going. So.
And the regular entrance is $50?
That's my understanding, yeah. $50 for your typical GA ticket and access to the
I'm
general.
going to go to
grounds.
Tom.
Yeah, is this event profitable for the ski company? Or
No.
is it a money loser?
Yeah, it's a money investor, as
Okay.
having battled my own people for years. Like, it's an investment in the long term, in youth, and in broad-based programming. For what it's worth, they're not here, but it's a money loser for the operator, too. Back in the day, it was ESPN. Now it's MSP. It's a net negative investment. And I don't mean that as like a negative comment. Like, they're spending dough. All they're doing is recouping a few bucks by charging of admission. Plus, they're kind of like resetting the bar. Like, how many people can see the best in the world and pay nothing? How many people can see music and pay nothing? It's fewer and further apart.
But
in life.
but they get all the TV benefits, right? I mean,
They sell it, you would
advertising.
think, right?
Yeah.
I think we get a lot of that benefit, though.
Uh-huh.
Just promotion into 175 million countries.
Okay.
175 countries. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Mental
back to
typo.
Tori and then
World is
back to
growing.
Alyssa. and-
So real quick, Tom, I will tell you, there is money to be made on the back end of these things. It's the same for the skiing company. It's an investment. It's a marketing investment. It's an attraction. So whether that weekend makes money for the ski company or not, hopefully it pays benefits in the future. It's the same for the production company or the owners of the event now. They are a sports marketing agency, etc. So they are business people. Yes.
Yeah. And
In the end-
you see why I'm asking the question, because
Yes.
why are we using taxpayer money if, in the end, it's a private event that charges money and If it's
in the long
profitable,
run. But here,
questionable.
and I just wanted to, that's just a comment. What I wanted to say was, I as well question if this fits in what our mission is. And I've got our mission in front of us right now, and it's a stretch. I support this. I would like to support this for this year. I think we are signaling that a lot of people have questions about the appropriateness of this funding. But for this year and knowing what's coming, I would support funding this, knowing that it may be a more difficult ask in the future. You're absolutely right. If there is profit being made here, then some of that profit should go to adequate transportation for the attendees to this event. Absolutely, I agree. Maybe that's a question that goes on forward for the next year. I would like to say as a point of support for this year's request. And I say that mostly because of the success of the movement and mobility that this event has enjoyed in the past. I would hate to see at this late date some plan that does not meet what the needs are. So at this point, I'd like to bring forward support, but
Thanks, Tori. Appreciate it.
I just had
Alyssa.
one question of clarification on the high school students. Is it 500 for the entire weekend or 500 a day?
still to be determined.
And you can put that in your press release, but I'm just kind of wondering. I'm just trying to understand.
They're working on that blank
Yeah,
number.
working on it.
Okay.
It's the latter. It's 500 per day.
Okay.
But again, I'm afraid for this to come out like in
No,
a
no, no.
half-baked manner.
It's just
I'd rather
curious.
do
I'm
it
just
the
trying
right
to
way.
understand how much benefit.
Too late. Yeah,
It was a
well,
major
it's
victory,
Sitting in
and
the room.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Steve again.
Okay, I recall in many big events up valley, when you ride the bus from down valley, you get on that bus and it would be packed, standing room only, whole aisle packed with people going up valley to big events. And all of those people are paying to ride RAFTA, all people from down valley. So they are paying to get there. They're paying their own way to get there. So I just want to put that
Good point.
into the equation also. I would still support doing the expenditure this year, but looking at it in the future, it's a broader discussion that I think we should have. It won't be me next year, but
Kick the can down the road.
just
for us,
another
Steve.
thing to think about. Thanks.
Plus,
Okay.
he doesn't pay because he's a senior like I don't
Right,
pay, and I
okay.
ride the other way
Are there
away
any
from
other
X Games.
questions? John Doyle.
Just a quick comment. I would say that I think this is money well spent. I'm hoping we can bring the cost down a little bit, but ultimately, this does get cars off the road.
Thank you.
I have sort of a silly detail question, but so if you have all these buses that aren't RAFTA and people want to ride up with their RAFTA pass, do we have like hardware on the other buses to facilitate that, or do those kids have to come up with cash, or it's I know it's very detailed and probably not in your bailiwick, but just
the third-party entities that come in do not charge
Oh.
anyone for anything.
I was wondering about that.
No.
Yeah.
They charge me.
Okay, I'm going to, I received a comment about a concerned citizen on this, and I'm just going to share it with you briefly. When the X Games started 20-some years ago, it was new, it was free, it didn't have alcohol, it was a community amenity, and it seems like now it's become a profitable event, and it seems to have run its course with ESPN. Is this a good use of public funds? It seems to be a precedent of supporting profit-motivated, profit-making events. And I know we've had a conversation around here, but the big question was, are we changing a precedent? Do we have a precedent for spending money on this? Maybe the EOTC money would be better spent on smart capital improvements.
Is that record, is that in the public record? Because I didn't receive that comment.
No, that just came to me personally. So I'll make it my comment then. But those are the questions that made sense to me, and it resonated because if there's a precedent, I just think that we should be wary of that if this, because somebody else is going to be asking us for a grant to get people to Jazz Fest or whatever.
Do we do anything for Jazz Aspen? Yes, a lot more than that. No, EOTC, I know Snowmass does, but EOTC.
Right.
City of Aspen also puts money into X Games.
I'm gonna open this up. I think we take public comment on this section of the
whole budget.
on the whole budget. Well, I'd like to close this because I want to keep us moving. Do we have to make a decision right now on this, or can we include this as part of the budget?
Linda's not up here, but it would be great if you could make a decision on these things. It's hard enough to get you all together for a
Right.
meeting.
No, I'm just trying to figure out when do we do this, during the overall approval, or are we going to go down the line? So I'll
It
need
is
some
in
guidance.
the recommended approved projects and expenditures right now. And so if you approve the budget as it has been presented by staff, this expenditure will be included. If there's any desire to take that out, you need to give us direction because it currently is included in the budget. Just like my previous comments, if there's any conditions that need to be met before these dollars are expended, you need to let us know that. But our recommendation would be to appropriate it. It's actually a county appropriation, so we appropriate the funds pursuant to the approval of this body to spend them.
Great.
So, quick question for you, John. Do you agree, is this $115,000 request in the line item that is other expenditures?
I believe we have an error in the spreadsheet. So what you saw earlier was that the X Games was included in the list of approved projects. We will go back and double check that before final approval by the board. I think the important part is whether this body wants that appropriation in or not.
And dovetailing off of that, the part of the reason I ask is because other expenditures is actually taken out over the 5-year plan with a $10,000 increase year over year in the other expenditures category that Councilor Marolt was asking about.
Yeah, and so Tori, sometimes if we don't have specific expenditures in the others, we're just escalating those by a percentage, understanding that we typically have others in the 5-year plan. And so that number may fluctuate year to year as we bring it forward to you.
Can I just get clarification of something you said, John? You said this actually gets funded by the county directly?
So the use tax is actually a county tax and is appropriated by the tax, but by the way the tax was approved and then the intergovernmental agreement between these entities, we need approval from each of you as the EOTC before we can appropriate it in the county budget.
I guess, so that is revenue in addition to the normal revenue that's up here? Does it come in and then go out, or is, no?
No,
Goes out.
Okay.
there's no hidden money here, unfortunately, or no
that's what I
money
was
that you're not. The dollars are, because it's a county tax, by law, it has to be appropriated
I
by the
understand.
county. So this isn't an actual appropriation. This is this body's approval for the county to appropriate the use of the use tax.
Right. Thank you.
So is this a decision point, or do we have to make a decision right now, or do we wait until we get to the end of the budget?
Are we not at the end of the budget?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have a 6 o'clock that I have to.
Yes, you can. I did want to make a note that subsidies so far for X Games in the course of its history is about 2.2 million coming from EOTC. I believe that's the correct number.
I would recommend that we do like a
Thumbs up, yeah.
You know, as direction.
I agree.
And then that gets incorporated into the roll call vote of the budget.
Thank you for putting those words out.
Okay, so thumbs up that it gets incorporated. Can we show a thumbs up, a show of hands?
I know, I'll say
That the ESPN 115 is incorporated in the budget.
Up to.
MSP.
MSP now. Okay, I think I saw thumbs up. Okay, you got a majority.
Just for process, because I'm hearing some questions coming up behind me here. What this is direction to keep this in the list of approved projects, and it will be incorporated in the overall vote to approve the budget.
Great. Thank
Just
you for that. That's
clarification.
So we
that's
don't
what I
need to
thought
make
we
a
were doing.
formal motion to amend the budget. We can just do what we've
Right.
done.
We're going to keep going. And okay, so I think it's time to close this down. Thanks, John. And we're going to open it up to public comment.
Can I just finish with
Yeah.
one quick thing? Because
sure.
I can tell there's an angst. This funding is going to Aspen Skiing Company as part of a community-wide bid to put on the X Games. It's not going to anyone else. I can tell you unequivocally that this is a massive, expensive event for us, and there's the spend, and then there's the foregone revenue, but we fully believe in this. We think this is the right thing to do, but this is defraying our investment. There's a lot of sectors of this community that make a ton of dough by being packed that weekend and building their own relationships over time. There's only two entities involved. It's us, and I can tell you this costs us a ton. To give our friends from MSP the benefit of the doubt, I do think this is a net negative investment, despite the long-term plan. We're all in things for the long term, right? Hopefully, but I know they spend an inordinate amount of dough on this. So I would avoid the money-making moniker with all due respect. I mean it the right way. So thanks for the audience. Sorry it took so
Thanks,
long.
John. No, I
Thank you very much.
appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to open this to public comment. I think, Linda, I just want to clarify, have we left anything out that we need to hit? Okay. I'm going to open it to public comment. Raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment on this topic. I see two hands up. Go Rachel first, please. You were the first one with a hand up. And I want to check to see anybody online, *9 to raise your hand online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. I think it's somewhat obvious that the lack of meetings throughout this year have shown a lack of familiarity with each other's projects and the potential synergy and improvement for mass transit among them. And so I really encourage a lot of extra meetings next year. In terms of the specific budget, I don't see any sort of budget for a retreat or for the type of work for this body to participate fully in the EIS process. I think you can augment that budget throughout the year, but that needs to be done. I also think that if you get creative with the potential Brush Creek bridge to connect that to transit to the larger EIS project, you can bring in some open space and trails money from both boards and potentially pull down better federal grants. But I don't see the segmenting of, oh, we need that bridge from Brush Creek Park and Ride lot for bicyclers and the entrance is over here. They're not. They're connected, just as you've talked about with the Airport Business Center. And again, if they're really combined, has a better opportunity for federal dollars. I specifically believe the budget needs to be much more detailed. The desire to get it down to one page is faulty. And I don't blame anyone for that, but you know, people need to be able to look back at these budgets 5 years from now and say what was in that $357,000 and not take guesses at it. They need to be documented, even if it's a $15,000 or a $25,000 thing. And finally, I would just say, I think you really need to take a look at individually out of your own budgets for funding HOV enforcement on Highway 82. I saw a lot more emphasis on how we improve bike trails and bike access and bike things, and not a lot on how this is really going to improve the mass transit ridership or bus efficiency. And HOV enforcement was the lowest hanging fruit that came out of the Aspen Institute study, and it can't be funded by EOTC money, we know that. But it was a $135,000 estimate before. It would really help manage traffic in the summer of 2025 if you guys would consider either individually, just the city of Aspen, or all three entities kicking in for HOV enforcement on Highway 82. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, moving right along. Tony.
Rachel just saved me 3 minutes. So, I support everything Rachel has said except for the enforcement of the HOV lane. Once you start enforcing the HOV lane, traffic won't move because half of that traffic is going to be stuck in the other lane. But with that being said, that this might help you understand, this actually came from the elected officials transportation page. And it's whether you have the authority based on Colorado state statute and also the Pickens County voters' approval. So in 1990, Colorado state legislature passed Colorado Revised Statute 29-2-103.5 that provides counties the authority to levy sales and use taxes for the purpose of financing, constructing, operating, or maintaining a mass transportation system within the county. In November 1993, per the Colorado state statute, Pickens County voters approved a 0.5% county transit sales and use tax for the purpose of financing, constructing, and operating and managing a mass transportation system within the Roaring Fork Valley. So then you go into Colorado Department of Transportation, and what is a public mass transit system? And that includes everything: motor vehicle, bus, truck, railroad, light rail, mass transit, airplane, bicycle, or any other form of transportation, including pedestrian transportation. So hopefully that'll answer your question, that the funding that you're looking for today is definitely within the bounds of the ballot language that were passed. So with that being said, that I started with the X Games the first year they started, and my job is security, parking, and transportation. And every year when I work those events, Jazz Aspen, Palm coming up this summer, and I hear the discussions about, let's get cars off the road, let's do mass transit, and the expense involved. For example, X Games, $100,000 a year for 20 years, that's $2 million. When I think about the aerial system, which definitely fits the definition for Colorado Revised Statutes and also the Pickens County ballot, I'm just like, why do we not have an aerial system? We would never, ever, ever have this conversation again. And in the record of decision, the transportation corridor starts from the entrance to Aspen all the way down to, as Steve alludes to, the Service Center Road, which can be extended once you get into the EIS down to Brush Creek Park and Ride. And I've been really passionate about getting cars off the road, improving the quality of life for people. And when the lumberyard project, I'm going to beat on that one for a moment, was approved, 300 beds. It's actually going to be 600 by the time people have families and they have kids and whatnot. A stoplight is what was approved. And that stoplight has been approved. And that stoplight goes into traffic that's already stopped. So where are we at? And then we have that bus that comes every 30 minutes, but that bus is stuck back in the roundabout in traffic. So we're not moving forward, we're actually moving backwards. The city of Aspen's hands were somewhat tied. What I would like to recommend, as Rachel has said, more meetings, but we need a task force to study the whole transportation corridor. And in my travels and campaigning, so to speak, I've talked to many, many people. A lot of the suggestions have been roundabout at Airport Business Center, roundabout at Owl Creek, shut down Harmony Lane Light going into Burlingame. That's where the gridlock is.
We need to.
But thank you. But if we could move it forward, because we need to come up with solutions. We need to do something. And then Tori had asked earlier if you could.
I need to stop. Okay.
This was budget
Thank you.
public comment?
Yeah, budget comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any other public comment in the room?
About the aerial that Tori mentioned?
Okay.
It's coming back.
All right. Thank you for that. We're bringing it back to the board. I'm looking for Kelly.
Yeah, I thank you, Rachel, and Tony. You've raised some questions for me. I will say that I do think that our three bodies should allocate money for HOV enforcement. Essentially, the two lanes are acting like induced demand right now, which is not anything that aligns with our mobility planning, and that this board is responsible for transit, not traffic management, and that I do think that it is a really important thing. I think that the request is low, and I'm going to suggest that our board consider adding that into our funding as we are moving through our budget, and maybe look to the other two boards to consider it as you all are finalizing your budgets over the next 2 months.
Great.
Sorry, I'm not done. Thank you.
I just wanted him to know that, because he never kind of looks this way, he always looks that way.
Okay. So I will say that, and then I am curious about if we need to do a placeholder for any EIS expenditures related to the Castle Creek Bridge, if that's something that comes up in this next conversation. I don't understand what our role might be in that, but I think it's a valid point to consider. So please flag that for continued discussion, and if we need to do that, include it today or bring it back as a supplemental. We have a lot of money we're stacking up in savings in the EOTC budget in the 5-year plan. So I think some maybe planning in the next year about what we're envisioning for the expenditure of that money would be great too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Patty.
I think before we start, and I don't disagree with enforcement of HOV, it's just that we need to talk with the persons who will be enforcing it, which is our sheriff's office, which is already asking us for more deputies because they don't have enough staff. So I think we need to have that discussion with the SO, and I don't think that Colorado, the state troopers are into enforcing it, but so I think it's a broader discussion than it's just giving, here's money, but you don't have staff to do it, you don't have, so I think that's a bigger question. I think it's a question we need to ask, but, and I think that should be part of the discussion moving forward. As far as allocating money for, more meetings or a 1.5 day big retreat kind of event, or whether it be for the EIS or whatever, I think when the time comes and we know what that'll be, we can come back with a supplemental. I think we should agree to that in the future because we do have the money in the fund, but we don't really right now know how much or whatever. But I think that should be part of discussion moving forward.
Thank you. Tori?
Yeah, the two items that I'm interested in seeing in this budget are, I would love, well, first of all, I just, a little while ago while we were in this meeting, I sent an email to Linda to share with the rest of EOTC members. Recently in Time Magazine, I believe it was, there is a story about aerial transportation and some projects that are getting going underway. One of note is in Queenstown, New Zealand, a sister city of Aspen, and it's a sister city of Aspen because of so many of the similarities that we share. But nonetheless, there was an article in Time Magazine that was talking about aerial connection, and the latest evolution of it is something, I believe the company is called Whoosh, and what Whoosh has is a fixed line, so the trams themselves are not connected to the cable, they move on the cable. They can be on demand, they can be, anyway. I think that this board should maybe look into getting some of that scoped. I don't know what it costs, but maybe we could get it looked into. I don't know how Snowmass Village feels, but so I don't know if Snowmass Village would be interested in a gondola connection from the intercept lot to the rodeo lot or even up to the base of the hill. I don't know. I know that for a long time people have talked about connecting the mountains through gondola connections. I personally don't know if an aerial tram works from the ABC airport into town. I don't know, but maybe we could find out. We've been presented with this at a cost of $40,000 to get that kind of thing scoped. If it's $40,000 to get it scoped, we might want to get some information about it. So that's item number one. Is I would say to this board, maybe at least we can get some information back about what that scoping would actually cost us, and then we can consider it. The second thing I would say is thank you, Kelly, for bringing that up. Yes, as the city of Aspen is moving towards entrance to Aspen solutions and opportunities, the EOTC, which used to have a set aside lockbox, as I said earlier, with millions of dollars towards that effort, we would be looking for EOTC help in some of that funding for the next steps in that. And I do think that that is an appropriate use and expenditure of the funds from EOTC. Because it's so late, I'm not going to ask for some background information around those lockboxes for people that haven't served on EOTC for the last 20 years or so, but it is late. And so we don't need to do that, but as was pointed out, the fund balance here has the room going forward for participation in the EIS. I know that these three bodies all want to work together collaboratively in this, and this body would be one to forward funding towards that effort. So if it's not in this budget because we don't have that scoped or amounts right now, I would just say to fellow board members, please be ready for a potential ask in 2025 as we start to embark on an EIS for improvements to our 82 corridor.
Thank you, Tori. Appreciate that. Steve and then Bill. And then John.
Thank you. One comment about the HOV lane. It's against state law to enforce the HOV lane. Our sheriff's deputies were told to no longer even think about enforcing it, even though they didn't have the manpower to do so. But that was our advice from our county attorney's office when John Ely was still with us. And I want to throw an idea out there that I have told the EOCC about, but I want to put it out there to the EOTC. And that's the idea of an aerial tram, not to the airport and Brush Creek, but to Aspen Highlands. That would take all the kids to the schools, to the rec center, people to Highlands, people by the Aspen Chapel. It would alleviate the huge traffic jam at the roundabout coming off of Castle and Maroon Creek, which has the Raptor buses, Castle and Maroon bus sitting there because they can't move. And so I think that should be looked at in the future for an alternative to the aerial tram idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to go to Bill.
Yeah, I don't think Snowmass Village has an interest in putting a tram from the intercept lot to the village. However, I think we should be considering allocating a budget in the future for some assistance with the Carbondale circulator. They don't have a stable funding source through that, and RAFTA doesn't have a place for it as well. So I think that it's a really important transportation topic. It really serves Carbondale well, and I think that the EOTC may be an opportunity to fund that particular service.
Carbondale circulator. Thank you. John.
Two quick things. Last week at the Mountain Town 2030 Climate Solutions Summit, Whistler let the group know that they are looking at a valley floor aerial transit system. I don't know any more details than that, but they seem like they're pursuing it fairly aggressively. And then lastly, I'd like to mention that I was told that when Heinz was developing the base of Highlands, there was talk of an aerial tram that went from the Buttermilk parking lot up and to the top of Buttermilk and down to Highlands, and that infrastructure was built and it is in place.
Objections from the people who live in Maroon Creek.
Yep.
They're no longer alive.
Right. Perhaps not. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? We look like Ward, I keep forgetting, you're just so invisible to
Because
me.
you sit this way and
Oh, see, I don't look to the left. It's from avoiding Patty. I apologize to you.
pretty
Go ahead.
obvious.
Now I understand. I would like to pull the first three items on expenditures that relate to wages. I think that this is something that's come up without, I'd like to have more details on what employment contracts are in place and the increase, to pull that from the budget for future discussion. I think this meeting indicates that we need to have more meetings. We're just too much to cram into one meeting, so more meetings, and I'll look at more information on increased and newer technology on aerial transportation. So those are the first three items on the expenditures: salary and wages, employee benefits, and health insurance. I'd like to pull for further discussion.
Okay.
I have a logistic question here, a process.
Thank you.
It's 6 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and we have an hour more of discussion before. And plan was from 4 to 6. So just to let people know, and
Optimistic.
I just tried to rearrange my plans without success, so I am going to be leaving this meeting. And
We'll still have a quorum, but
you'll
we're
still have a
unfortunately
quorum, but
leaving.
just to let people know, you still have more than an hour's worth
We've
of
got work to do.
discussion.
We do realize that. Thank you.
Which ties into Ward's comment about needing more meetings, which we all
thanks,
need to
Patty.
participate in, not staff, but it's up to us to have quorums here.
Great, thank you. I just want to articulate a little bit on on Ward's comment regarding pulling salaries, wages, benefits. Apparently, there was a placement and range study that was conducted unbeknownst even to the staff. And the placement and range study came back with an increase in salary, which I think drew Ward's attention. This isn't something that staff even knew about. So I understand that it does need to merit more attention, and so that nobody's taken by surprise. And so I just want to apologize to Linda and staff. It's not a reflection on you. It's something that what happened beyond your control. Is that correct?
It's not. Staff, being this staff, was aware of it, and it is a county-wide process. I'm sure, like all of our organizations do, where we go out and do market studies and range studies. There were adjustments that occurred as a result of those studies. These processes were anticipated when we signed our fiscal agent agreements, that we would follow personnel policies and procedures of the entity acting as the fiscal agent. This was consistent across the county. Now, increases and changes were not consistent, as is sometimes the case with these market studies. We also, in all fairness, and I think some of you are familiar with this going through your own budget processes, had a very, very difficult year in health insurance. And so a lot of the increase that you're seeing is also related to that. The county's portion for our health insurance premiums went up by 25%.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for that, John.
You guys pass this to Patty, please.
She
Thank you.
borrowed my eyes for this meeting, not my
got it.
brain, but just my eyes.
Okay,
Thanks.
so is that satisfactory? Do you want to, I just want to make sure I understand the procedure
Well,
on.
to me, it seems a 24% increase in that requires more discussion, and I'll leave it up to the rest of the EOTC to opine on that. But that really jumped out at me as something that, from the city's standpoint, when we review our city manager, it's a more detailed process, and this just seems odd to be, or unusual to be just lumped in without any discussion, and part of that is that we just don't have enough meetings.
Right, yeah, that seems to be the undercurrent of the entire thing. I want to keep us moving. I'm certainly aware of time, and I want to, we could do thumbs up if we want to pull this, or we want to thumbs down if we don't. I'd love to just get a sense from everyone here informally before we slice into the budget and before a formal vote on the entire thing.
I think it would be appropriate, Greg, for us to bring back information, maybe to sit down if the whole group is interested in this. Our IGA is very specific that it will follow our personnel policies and procedures. And so if this group is wanting to take that back over, then I think we need to reconsider the IGA. You're making a bigger decision here. But in terms of transparency, I'd be happy to go back over our process and such in more detail. I would not hold up the whole budget for this conversation, though.
Thank you for that. That's what I was looking for. Did you
You
want to
should
make?
just stay there for a while.
Yeah, just sit, stop. It hurts when you
Walking
walk.
around.
It's getting the steps
Go
up.
ahead.
Yeah, my only question here was, in the salary and wages line, is that for one FTE? The conversation leading up to this meeting was that we were going to scale back our meetings. So is this is this a shared employee position, or is this a dedicated FTE to EOTC? Just clarification.
Yeah, it's dedicated.
So it goes along with kind of, we were talking about the fact that, we only need to meet once a year, and then So I'm just wondering, okay, I get it though. This is an FTE fully loaded for those 3 items, dedicated to EOTC.
Got it. Okay. I'd like to separate this and call a question for each jurisdiction. The motion, a second. I could start with Snowmass.
Okay.
Anybody'd like to make a motion to
On the entire budget.
on the entire budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Thank
Do you have
you.
a second?
We have a
Wait,
second, Bill.
Without pulling this, I don't know where we are.
What John has said is we can't really pull it unless we want to take apart.
But you just said you wanted to, so what does that mean?
I'm sorry.
Poll.
He said pull.
Thank you.
Pull.
Thank you,
I was
thank you.
pulling the
Pull
audience.
and pull.
I'm sorry.
What is happening here?
Anybody here named Paul?
Okay, I think I have a motion and a second from Bill. I think, do I call a question for your board? All in favor from Snowmass?
But what, you guys are about to vote on the budget as presented? Because there were some outstanding questions that haven't been answered. The 115,000, is it in there? Is it not in there? What does the other expenditure, you had a counselor that was asking about what did the other expenditures break out to? Are these questions that we want answered, or are you guys about to adopt the budget as presented? I also had a request, and maybe it's not a budget item, but it's about getting some information back about the aerial connection and what that, is that included in their
I think
motion?
that's a budget supplemental is what I understood, that we would pursue after this budget is approved, unless we want to tear this budget apart.
Yeah, so the X Games is on the list of approved projects, and so we'd need if it were the desire to remove that, that would need to be an active part of the motion to remove that.
Didn't we already do a thumbs up on that 115,000?
Yeah, but that's not yes, but that's not, this is the official vote, and I think what Tori's asking is make clarification, and so I'm just trying to provide clarification.
Thank you,
Right
John.
now, with the motion that's made, X Games would be funded. What would not be funded, I do not believe the aerial tram, there's money in there for that, so that would either need to be a motion to include that or to go for a supplemental in the future.
What about the EIS fund?
The other thing to include, I think maybe makes it clear, is it takes unanimous approval from the 3 boards. So the town council just made a motion for the town council to consider it. There was a motion to approve at the second. If the Snowmass Village approves it, it's as presented.
Right.
If another board wants to do something different, then it's up to you. But I think, I don't want to put words in my boss's mouth, they're recommending it or want to approve it as presented, and if you all want to come back with supplementals at some other point, go for it.
Yeah.
But it's to move it along as presented, is that how I understood the
That was
motion?
my intent, is we'd approve it as is and then come back with supplementals.
As usual, Clint was more concise than me.
Thanks, Clint. Thanks for being here, Clint.
Is it unanimous or majority?
It can be majority from the individual
Right,
boards,
right,
but
yeah.
all 3 boards
Yes.
have to approve it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ward has a question.
Yeah, we're over when we were supposed to meet. There's so much to be discussed. I'd like to know if we would like to continue this meeting so we can have discussions of these items that have been brought up. I mean, to approve a budget in an hour is like, it's just
Thanks for that.
nonsense.
Thanks for that. I was comfortable trying to get this through because, as we know, it's very hard to meet. We know we can meet in working groups, we can meet in subsets and still get work of the EOTC done. My fear is that we're going to try to schedule another EOTC meeting and hopefully it'll be in 2025. But I can't guarantee that. Tori and
Real
then
quick
Kelly.
question, because remember we used to go back to our individual boards and approve. So we don't need to do approval here at this table if we can still do that methodology of going back to our boards and approving.
Yeah, that
We can do it in our own regular meetings, right?
if there is disagreement, though, amongst
Understood.
then we will not have consensus, and so it has been better to try and do that this board.
Understood, but because there's outstanding issues that could be cleared up and go to each board, and we'd be clear about what we were voting on, then maybe there won't be any discrepancies between boards. We can leave here knowing where everybody is standing and what they need, but, I mean, I've heard outstanding questions, and I just,
I appreciate that. Oh, I'm going to, Kelly, go ahead.
I'm gonna suggest some process to
Yeah. it's kinda
chop up our conversation a little bit. Because I think that there's sort of 3 thumbs up that we need to resolve. One being whether there's agreement to Ward's desire to pull that section of the budget for conversation. I'm not sure everyone at this table agrees that needs to be done. The second one is whether we want to throw some chunk of money in for feasibility on an aerial tram. The third, whether we want to throw some chunk of money in right now on an EIS, are kind of the 3 things that I think we need to decide. Like, do we have thumbs up to amend the budget or thumbs down to amend the budget in those ways? And then we do a poll with that amended budget or not.
3 thumbs up polls.
Yeah,
The
because we
third
have
would
to
be-
understand if we're amending the budget, but we don't do a roll call vote on amending a budget. We
Can
do
I-
a roll call vote on the full budget that we're adopting.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna go
So,
on and then-
just real quick, you have a motion and a second from one of the entities, and I think once you go into that, you should maybe let the entity handle that discussion. I think this conversation may have been useful for how Snow, but you do have a motion and a second that needs to be resolved, and I would resolve that and then
Got it.
figure
This
out
is
how
the-
you want to move
I was
forward.
thinking this was the further conversation part of that. Now, can I call that question with a roll call?
No, it would
Bill
be
has
much
to.
better. I would hand it over to the mayor or chair of each
Okay, I'm
entity.
handing this to Bill.
Well,
They can
and I
withdraw
would,
their motion. Or you can withdraw your motion.
well, and I would suggest that we adopt the budget as is, schedule another meeting so that we can get into these other questions, potentially have a supplemental budget enhancement so we can potentially study the aerial
And other supplementals.
and anything else that we may want to add to the budget.
That's what I was going to say when I raised my hand. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Francie. Okay, so in that case, you can call your question.
Any other further discussion from Snowmass Village?
No, I mean, I just think, I guess the EIS, the things that you mentioned, Kelly, are great, and I would be interested in incorporating them, but I don't know when we're possibly going to have more information on them. So I think Bill's idea is the right way to go, and I would just vote on that. Get us out of here.
Okay.
We're all
Is
tired.
this, do we need to have roll call, or is it just,
I'll call it normal. All in favor?
okay, Snowmass Village, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Great, unanimous. Okay, I'm going to go to the city of Aspen.
I'll attempt to make a motion. I would move to approve the EOTC 2025 budget 5-year plan, including the $115,000 request from ESPN.
Kiko.
Skiko.
It's already in there.
Sorry.
So we're still
Yes,
good.
and that is in there, but to be clear, because I don't see it line item. I'm not gonna ask for, I would love to get direction on getting scoping for aerial tram. It doesn't need to be a line item budget now, but I'd like to have that as part of my motion. And, there was a third thing.
EIS.
The EIS, once again, we're gonna need to come back to you with some cost scoping and see what shared amount for EOTC would be, so.
So just for clarification, I think based on that motion, we're not changing the budget, so it's consistent with the motion for budget approval that Snowmass made, but with administrative direction to EOTC staff for some follow-up. So I
That's
think
how I
that would
interpret it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're going to make a, okay, do you have
It
a
is.
second?
I'll
second. We have a
All
second.
right, so we have a motion and a second.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Yeah, the motion is to approve the 2020, the EOTC 2025 budget and 5-year plan with just one request is that we our returns some additional information around scoping, and I guess the EIS as well will come back for supplemental stuff. That's pretty much the entity of it. It is pretty much what you see here, but with the additional requests and support for coming back with the information on aerial tram and EIS funding.
And some other stuff.
For discussion on this?
Yes, discussion.
I'm not going to support this motion at this time. I think that we need to have more granular discussion and to get a budget that we've really sussed out this stuff. So I don't support approving this budget at this time. I think we need to have more time to go through these items, better delineation of what these expenses are. So as Rachel, I think, pointed out, that 10 years from now, where was that $300,000 spent? I just don't think we're ready to approve this budget yet, so I'm not going to support it.
And, well, I want to ask any other comments, but Tori's going to call the question.
Well, Sam or John, other discussion and any concerns there? We do have the opportunity to take this up at our next regular meeting. There is John's concern, which is that if we get to that, and it differs from what the other entities have approved, then we will face a non-approval of the budget. But if it doesn't, and it does approve the budget once all members are satisfied with the information that they have, which can be attained but for our next regular scheduled meeting, you would think, a week and a half?
Well, if we approve a different budget than Snowmass just approved and Picken County
But we may
approves,
not.
then we all have to come back and do it again.
But we may not.
Don't want to do that if we can help it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Are you coming to comment? Are you just getting closer to the table?
I'm just here to support my council if they need it.
Excellent.
I'm very eloquent in saying if this body is not prepared to vote tonight, a no vote by this body tonight will have to go through your reconsideration process. So that's a key consideration for council is that should this motion fail this evening, you can put another motion on the floor. However, I don't see it being substantially different tonight based upon the commentary I've heard from Aspen council members. And there is definitely the option on your meetings on November 12th and 19th to discuss this item and reconsider as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
So John or Sam?
Comments or?
My feelings are I'd rather not take the risk of undoing the IGA, and as long as we can discuss this later, I'm okay with that. But I do think it needs to be discussed, and I will reiterate, we need more meetings.
Sam?
The budget's fine.
Short and sweet.
No, we just need you to call the question.
I understand. I have to figure out what I need to do to support my council members. So you have to give me a minute.
No problem. I'll give
Thank
you a
you.
minute.
So with a motion and second on the floor, just a friendly reminder that it would be necessary to call the vote unless the motioner were to withdraw their motion.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion. You know, we are missing one member, and I have a member that is uncomfortable with approval at this time. I would prefer on a budget question like this for my council members to have the information that they request and to have a full council moving forward and not a unfulfilled vote. I feel like we will be able to bring this to our council meeting for approval. If that's a path that is availed to me, then that's the path that I would prefer.
Okay, thank you,
So
Tori. So you've withdrawn your motion.
When we see this at our meeting in 2 weeks, we can approve it. You can still make the motion.
Yeah. So it would be helpful still, though, to know where the Board of County Commissioners stands, because if you stand similarly to Snowmass, then we know where at least two of the three entities are.
Right. That's
Can I
the
make a
next step.
motion to pass the 2025 budget? You want to second it?
Sure, you
can make that motion.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I make a motion to pass the 2025 EOTC budget.
Okay.
So we can at least vote on it.
Is there a
Sure.
second?
Find a second.
Is that a second?
No.
No, okay.
No,
Do we-
it's three.
No, I don't hear a second. Okay,
Motion dies.
thank you.
It's appreciated, Sam.
Okay.
But, we work together as a board, and so
we
getting
go
our
down
board together
together.
to do this is no problem. Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna bring it to Pitkin County. I'm looking for.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as it stands with the understanding that we will have supplemental discussions in the future.
I'll second, but I have a further point of clarification, that we are going to do this whole thing again for the work plan, correct? Because I heard discussion relative to adding to the work plan for scoping out an aerial tram, and I think we need to assess that. So I just would love some clarification.
Yeah, so we can bring those items back at a future meeting, and then they could be added as a supplemental appropriation. Right now, with the motion that was passed by Snowmass, it does not include the aerial tram, but, and the motion that gave the direction from Aspen was withdrawn, so that has not been
Sure.
part of it.
So my
But
point
we
of
could bring that back.
clarification is by virtue of adopting the budget, we are secondarily adopting the work plan in the same vote.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's correct, thanks.
Was that a second?
Have a commitment.
Yes, that was a second.
I have a motion and I have a second.
Sorry, just further, we have, in our processes, have had to amend our work plan over time at times. So I would expect that these discussions of additional scopes of work would have to come back as amendments to the work plan. Okay, thank you. And I'll just foreshadow, I don't think I voted, I think I voted against including the aerial tram in the work plan in the past, and I probably would do so again. I just don't see how a transportation system that moves maximally at 30 miles an hour along our corridors and much slower than that in most days is a viable, that is correct, Tony. So that, I just don't see it as a viable thing for us to spend time on. So I'll foreshadow that in my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. Pitkin County has four members here. Steve is still with us. Thanks, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it passes 4-2 with one missing.
I have to leave.
Thank you.
I'm late.
Okay, so you've got two boards who have passed this, one that has not.
Yeah, so we will work with Sarah to schedule a time to be back in front of the Aspen City Council. Obviously, if the Aspen City Council adopts a budget that differs from what the other two entities have approved, we will all have to reconsider and go through a reconsideration process again.
Will you also share additional information that City of Aspen may get with us?
Yeah, we can share that through the managers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, detailed budget information, that sort of thing.
And I think that the beauty of the way we think we're going to pursue this is that work groups can form and work on EOTC projects within the next year without 15 people sitting around the table. So I fully expect that to happen, and I'll do my best to help expedite that. And we will be talking about the possibilities of trams and EISs and comprehensive transit plans, all these things that have been discussed
Great.
in future meetings, but not tonight.
Yeah, sounds great. And just to signal to y'all, in conversation with Ward, he just wants more information. My anticipation is that we will approve the budget, but I will also have the benefit of my 5th council member back, and Ward will get the information that he needs. So.
Right. I'm not sure we can move as quickly as you can on this. There's no guarantee if Snowmass or we can, if we need to change anything in the near term.
I'm not anticipating any changes for your boards.
Got it. Okay.
You're just looking for more specification? in the presentation of the budget.
Correct.
Okay, I think I can, we have a Castle Creek Bridge discussion ahead of us.
I can pull it out.
Call for a motion.
Are we,
Adjourn.
You gotta go,
People might
Sam?
like that.
No.
Okay, so we are at a crossroads here.
No, I was just
We've
wondering if you
got-
were leaving
We're
for
behind
quorum.
schedule by 25 minutes. We probably need 45 or something like that for this. Who is going to leave the room next? And should we push on?
tonight.
Or I'm going to take a quick poll of everyone here to see if we can push on, or if you want to pull the plug and hear this another time.
Well, can I just ask a question? Is this
Please.
Sorry. Is this the same presentation? We just had one recently at Snowmass. Is this the same, or is there something different going on? I mean, because if there isn't something different, then I would say let's just push forward.
We have 3 slides. We don't really view this as a staff presentation. This is a discussion amongst electeds if that's what's desired. All we have as updates for you is clarity on the letters received from the Colorado Department of Transportation, as well as the direction staff has received from Aspen City Council, which includes a discussion about a NEPA process.
Given that information, do I have the confidence that people are going to stick around we'll try to cap this at 30 minutes, 25,
Less.
maybe less?
It's possible.
Could we maybe switch the order of these last things? It seems like setting dates and proposed topics might be something that we have to come to an agreement on when we are all together, and then we could have Castle Creek updates individually as boards. Again,
Kelly?
There is like no other topic that is more important for the elected officials in this community to get together and talk about.
That's
And this
true.
is the only time that we have slated in a 15-month period in which to do it. So I think it would be a very big disappointment to our constituencies for us to not sort of understand amongst each other in our representative roles how we would all like to work together on trying to solve this problem. So it's not just, I don't see it as just like an informative, we've all sat through our informative, presentations from the city's transportation department. We have not had the chance to dialogue our reactions to that or how we hope to collectively co-design solutions, which is to me an incredibly important thing to do. And I can sit here for the rest of the night to do it.
Okay, any other comments?
Maybe order pizza.
Before we push forward? Show of hands if you want to say something. Otherwise, I'm going to continue, and Sarah, you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all.
I don't know if y'all agree with me, but that's what I think.
I do agree.
I just
Very
wanted-
forceful, very forceful.
I just wanted to
I'm not
flip 'em.
moving.
Our one meeting of the year.
Silence is agreement.
I would
As
have
we're
ordered
told.
food if I had known we were going to go past 6 o'clock. Sorry.
I apologize, Linda.
No.
You probably didn't think we were going to go as deep as we did earlier, so we live and learn. Who has the farthest commute? Brian? Who's got the farthest? Who's got the farthest commute? Right, yeah, you, Linda, right.
Or
Great. Oh,
David
well, we
or
can't lose you.
Francie.
Francie, right.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly about the importance of this discussion, and I think we're all chomping at the bit to talk about it. I think it deserves its own meeting. And I think that we could commit to a time to come together as people and meet about this. If it's a priority, we shouldn't be doing it at 7:30, at 6:30 at night when we have another major topic on the agenda. That's my feeling. It's a very important issue. And trying to cram it into 20 minutes and then get frustrated when some people want to talk a lot about it and other people want to go home is doing it a disservice. It's doing you guys a disservice, I think, to try and cram it in at this time of day. I think we should commit to
We talk about
whether
it all
it's
the
a
time.
daily retreat, a whole day retreat, or
guys
a
all-
half-day retreat, or like the one we had at Dozier, whatever.
Look,
Thank you.
Tori,
I appreciate it. This is not an intense presentation. We want to just bring you up to speed with where we're at. You're right. This is gonna get a year to 2 years discussion coming up. if we're embarking on the process that we're embarking on. So this is a collective community process, is about to come our way. This right now, 45 minutes was probably generous. We can probably do this quicker. The team has pared down their presentation. We just want to bring you up to speed, and that'll maybe set us up for success.
I would like to see that.
Without discussion.
We don't have to get deep tonight because we're not going to solve this tonight.
Yeah.
There's a big process that is about to start.
Let's all watch this tonight. How about that?
Yeah.
We'll get through this very quickly.
And if you have to go, we understand. Thank you.
I don't have to go.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm joined tonight with Jen Newton, Senior Project Manager in the City Manager's Office in Aspen, and she is a co-project manager for the entrance to Aspen and Castle Creek Bridge. Quickly, just starting off, I think it's always important that we remember that this is a state and federal asset. Anyone and the entities that represent this table at most are cooperating agencies, so therefore are not the directives of the outcome of what is an appropriate solution. There's a very specific process under NEPA that needs to be followed, and we will just provide you some quick updates tonight to assist you on where the status of things are. Thank you.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Jen Newton. I wanted to just give a very brief overview. I have some other slides, so if there's other things that we need to go back to, we can unhide them. But the City of Aspen has 3 times asked some questions to CDOT. And I think at various points when we presented to your boards, we had that information. We recently received that 3rd letter in September. So no one other than the City of Aspen Council has seen this information. Some key takeaways from that pursuing a new solution requires at a minimum that supplemental environmental impact statement. The 3-lane bridge and a modified split shot, which are of interest to the Aspen City Council, would require an EIS, and that CDOT has confirmed that it would be Aspen's responsibility to procure funding for a new NEPA process. I add this last bullet here about the categorical exclusion because it's been a topic of conversation in the community. We asked specifically to CDOT whether or not there was any way in which this could be a categorical exclusion.
What does that mean?
It's a separate type of process. So under the National Environmental Policy Act, there are 3 kind of lanes. One, which is the categorical exclusion, which says that there's no significant impact essentially, and so it can proceed. The middle one is the environmental assessment, which is a process that is similar to the EIS. The EIS is the longest process. It assumes that there are impacts, and then there's a mitigation strategy around that.
Jen, can I ask you about this slide before you go on?
Certainly.
So does this mean that any solution besides the preferred alternative requires a new EIS, or all possible avenues require a new EIS?
So what it's saying is that there could be a reevaluation if there weren't any impacts. So if there was something small that was changing in the preferred alternative, the example that I've used in the past is the tunnel, that the length of the tunnel it says 400 feet. If there were a solution where it was 2 tunnels that were both 200 feet, that could be accomplished through a reevaluation. All of the options that are kind of a new solution that would have a greater process, the 3-lane bridge and the split shot, CDOT has said have to go through the whole process. So both of those are of interest to the Aspen City Council, and that's why we are saying that we would need to have the full environmental impact statement process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other okay, let's keep going.
So this is just a little bit more information about that. So considerations for pursuing an alternative other than the preferred alternative, we anticipate that there will be a new scoping process. We're working with Jacobs Engineering, who's been advising us on this process to get a new scope that would scope for the EIS. So some of that pre-work that would need to happen before the EIS process kicks off itself. One of the things is that there would need to be a new project need intent. So the purpose and need would have to be revisited in that new environmental impact statement. The information that's there is from the 90s process, but we anticipate that there will be stakeholder engagement and a meeting with EOTC to talk about purpose and need and the corridor itself. Essentially, so I think we can satisfy you on having an additional meeting. The last,
Question for
probably
Kelly.
more than
Yeah.
one.
Hold on, question.
Yeah, is all this that we're looking at pulled from the process in the 90s?
It was. So these are the project needs that are identified, but we know that this would have to be revisited in that new process. So there will be a conversation, stakeholder engagement about what has changed essentially, and what, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's engagement about what's changed, but there's some other key things that change. It's a very different regulatory environment now than when this was passed in the 1990s. So there's additional regulatory considerations that would impact. And it's not like you can finish an EIS and be like, oh, never mind, we want to go back to the other record of decision. It doesn't work that way. Once you start this process, you have to follow it through to the new record of decision typically. The other thing that I would say is that we anticipate that the stakeholder group will be larger than it was in the 1990s. From initial conversations with the Department of Transportation and their conversations with the Federal Highway Administration. So, like for example, as of now, that cooperating agency component could be much broader than the current list of 13 cooperating agencies, which about 3/4 are federal agencies that would stay on the list, and new cooperating agencies added who would be have some weighty consideration in the outcomes of the process. I think the other thing that we sometimes forget is that the new EIS process, the back of the napkin is you have to do a new NEPA process in 24 months, right? That's the law. However, there's a lot of work you do ahead of time before you officially kick off. So we're looking at probably at least a 3-year process, if that's the direction given from Aspen City Council. Our very, very early estimates of cost are between $2 and $3 million. There's a lot more scoping to be done to refine that, and you can believe I will be to EOTC requesting at least $1 million, possibly more, to support that process.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question on, does the CDOT have like a lifespan, a half-life for a record of decision? Do they last indefinitely, or do they go stale after, I've heard like 8 or 10 years? It's like, it's not uncommon.
There's not a mandatory expiration date on the one here in Aspen.
So it's still in effect, but after 3 years, there has to be a reevaluation. So that's the re-upping.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There was a reevaluation, wasn't there?
In
2007, 2008?
2007, yeah. So I've already mentioned this. City Council's direction was to provide a cost estimate to advance a new environmental impact statement or a supplemental environmental impact statement. This direction was before we received the letter from CDOT, so we recognize that we are looking at a full EIS. So we're currently scoping that, the pre-process, not the EIS itself, but what do we need to get there? Working with FHWA and CDOT on that, anticipate that contract will go to council sometime in November. Additionally, we have identified a polling firm. We're not yet under contract to poll registered voters. It was also direction that we had from the Aspen City Council related to the community sentiment about this project. So we will go to City Council to talk to them about what those polling questions are, based on the recommendation that we have from the pollster, and then would have those results in mid-December. We have also asked for a community meeting to explain the results to the community, and additionally, direction from our Aspen City Council to hire a NEPA attorney to help us through this process. And so with that, I'm open to any questions you have.
Yeah.
Francie?
Yeah, the polling is about what kinds of alternatives there are, or whether you're moving forward with the EIS, or?
It'll be multiple layers, right? Number one is about community sentiment. What does the community want? What we face is some objection to the preferred alternative for different reasons. And so what we want to try to get to is like, what does some majority of community get behind? Somebody said earlier that, the city was considering placing a ballot question on this November ballot, but the nature of the ballot question was proposed to be, do you support the use of open space for bus lanes? And the problem with putting a question like that forward is that there are people that are completely would be for utilizing open space for bus lanes, but not the preferred alternative that goes through the middle of the Maroldt. So we wouldn't have gotten necessarily the clarity of what is the objection there. So we held off on doing that question because we think that through polling questions, we can get multiple layers of input from the community to help kind of give us some insight about what community desire is. If you noticed in the 10 objectives, community goals and community are one of them, but there's 2 or 3 that really allude to kind of what are community preferences and how this project gets executed. That's why we're going to polling.
Thank you. I would just add that this is just Aspen, and the bridge affects everybody in the valley. I'm wondering if there'll be an avenue later for you to get responses from people who actually use the bridge every day.
That's an interesting thing to say, because we need to keep in mind that we are talking about 1/3 of a mile from the roundabout to Main Street. So regardless of what you might think this project entails and will impact, the studies that we get back are minimal gains and some losses under different scenarios. The issue that I have with taking, let's say, Glenwood Springs commuters and their view and say like, oh, you know what we want? We want a 4-lane highway. That's what we want. Well, that doesn't mesh up with the goals and the values of this end of the valley, and that's not something that meets the criteria of what we're trying to forward here. We are trying to forward mass transit. We want dedicated bus lanes into town, but other people have other goals for maybe what this entrance can accomplish, and I would just caution people to understand, we are talking about the roundabout to Main Street, 1/3 of a mile. If anybody has any other questions for Jen or Sarah on kind of the nuts and bolts about what we're talking, please ask those, and then I would like just 2 minutes to kind of encapsulate why we're where we are. So if anybody has any questions about the process.
I have a question, not so much about process, but when are we going to hear back from CDOT about their recent inspection of the bridge?
Great question. We'll be by the end of the year. We anticipate sooner than that, but I actually just met with CDOT this afternoon, and they gave me a heads up that mid to late November we should have that information.
And if it should get a failing grade, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to take this, Jen, because I feel like it gets mislabeled a lot in the conversations. Failing grade doesn't mean the bridge is failing.
No, I understand.
Yeah, but I need to say that for the benefit of the public repeatedly. So if you think about it, when a bridge hits below a score of 5 or 50, They use both a 1 to 10 and a 0 to 100 rating scale in different scenarios. It means it gets put on the watch list for work. It doesn't mean that it's not functional anymore.
No, I understand.
And higher priority happens, again, for the benefit of everyone. The higher priority goes is when your score starts dropping lower and lower. So if you get that evaluation and you're under the 50 or the 5, you're going to have more frequent evaluations. You're going to start planning for superstructure improvements, not necessarily replacement, potentially. And so what we see is things happening more rapidly for bridge replacement when they're in the 30s. Quite frankly, in my view, looking over what the list is and the needs across the state, we won't be the first one. And I think that a lot of times these conversations miss how critical the state transportation funding process works and how that planning happens that we're right in the middle of right now. And that's an absolute critical step to project the future needs for our community to be in those 10-year planning processes, even if we don't know exactly the alignment.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was good.
And I don't know if, once again, this is a state highway. The city of Aspen doesn't own this bridge. The state owns this bridge. To add a little bit of recent history, I was down in Glenwood at the 27th Avenue underpass ribbon cutting. And I ran into Shoshana Liu, who is the director of CDOT, right? And I got an opportunity to say hello to her. And I want to just share that exchange with you guys. So number one, I thanked her for being in her position and doing the great job that she does, because she's really been great to work with. And we're lucky that she's the director of CDOT. Number two, she shared with me, and I agreed with her, that their number one priority, as she stated it, is the safety and continual use of the existing bridge. That is their number one priority. I shared with her that our city council feels the same way. That's our number one priority. And then the second thing our conversation went to was the fact that we are interested in this EIS and NEPA process. And I said to her that, we understand that, and we understand getting into the process. There's a reason for the evaluations that need to be done on projects like this. And we understand that, and we are willing to get into that process. She reciprocated by saying that she used the term "we," meaning CDOT, is understanding that we are looking for a reevaluation. The original record decision is 30 years old, changing conditions. They're understanding. There is no animosity or any questioning going on about where we're at. I see it as just a very good relationship where we are both looking to working forward with each other to get our best solutions. That's where we're at. If there's any other questions for them, and then I just have a couple minutes.
Any other comments, questions? I don't see any. Let's
Okay.
keep going.
So real quickly, and this is the fun part. Real quickly, the part of the reason that we're here is because we recognized that as the bridge that we currently utilize is reaching its lifespan, that something is going to need to be done, and we want to be prepared for that. What we've heard from our community is that there were some items in the preferred alternative that needed reevaluation. I'll give you just a quick example. The current preferred alternative iteration is about a 100-foot wide platform. It's two dedicated bus lanes, one in, one out. It is 2 dedicated general traffic lanes, one in, one out. And it also has a transit corridor, right? Because the preferred alternative was originally, in essence, designed for the potential for a valley-wide rail. That's why this alignment was scored so high. That's why this alignment was chosen. That's why it was the preferred alternative. But since that time, that transit corridor being on this platform is maybe not necessary, as we are not looking at that kind of connection for our valley. So that was one question that people had. People also questioned the environmental ethic of doing a cut and cover tunnel, which ultimately does disturb the rural open space, but then returns a grassed overpass and tunnel to the project, restoring some open space. People were wondering, hey, is there any way to avoid that? Third item was when it comes across and it meets up with Main Street, if on a new alignment, there was the potential of impact to a historic cabin that is there that might need to be relocated on property or removed completely. And then there is an issue of a new traffic light that would need to be put at 7th and Main. These are all items that and this is why we're doing polling instead of a ballot question. What are people's disagreements? What are they looking for better than the preferred alternative as it exists? That's why we're where we're at, is because we know something's going to have to be done because of the current state of the Castle Creek Bridge. But what is our best opportunity moving forward? We want that evaluated. So for the fun this evening, I brought for you guys, that's one for you and one for Alyssa over there. And Sam, I'll get one to you when you want it. But for you guys, all the way around to Britta over there, if you don't mind. Sure. These are just existing plots. So all of you can go home and use your colored marker set and try to draw new stuff, right? This is a participatory event.
Excellent. Thanks, Tori.
Yep, that's a clean slate. That is existing condition right there. You can go ahead and knock yourself out, draw whatever you want on those.
Bridge.
Steve, you'll have to get yours later.
And then what I wanted to do is I just wanted to share, and if you'll pass those that way as well, I just wanted to share a for example. A for example is what's called the modified split shot. The modified split shot achieves the goals, perhaps, of the 2 lanes of dedicated bus lanes into Aspen, and the 2 general traffic lanes. What it avoids is it avoids the cut and cover tunnel. It avoids the potential of a traffic light at 7th and Main. Maybe, right? This is me drawing on a map. There have been professional renderings done by a group called Parsons Engineering and such. This is just one possibility. As was said earlier, there is some support from some council members for just a 3-lane bridge replacement at the existing location. So there are different iterations, different kinds of solutions that different people enjoy. That's what we're trying to look at. I truly believe that none of us as council members are coming into this saying, this is what has to happen. We are looking to confer with our community and with CDOT, Federal Highway Administration, the county, Snowmass Village. We're open. We just think that it needs evaluation, and we need to do the best solution possible. We think, or some of us think, that the preferred alternative may be outdated. It needs a reevaluation. That's why we're at where we're at.
Thank you, Tori. Was that good? Thank you. That was quick. It was succinct. Nice map. Thank you. Kelly has her hand
Thanks,
up.
Tori. I have 2 kids who will happily draw all over these.
Yeah. And we're going to adopt what
But
they come up
I guess
with.
I'll just say, I think what is a little challenging about this conversation for me as a, partner organization, I see ourselves as a partner organization.
You very much are.
But you guys are along in a conversation at step 80, and we're at a conversation of step 2, and for me, I'm okay, I'm way back at the beginning of have we asked the broad community, do the goals remain the same? Do we have agreement on shared values? Which I feel is very preliminary community planning type conversation, not at let's figure out a solution, because a solution assumes that those things have already been agreed upon and defined, and we've not all been part of that conversation. And so I'm a little confused on how polling on a specific solution lines up with an EIS process that has 40 stakeholders or 25 stakeholders in it. And so, you know, I really like, I know it's not to say it's just a third of a mile of concrete is not reflective of like the hours lost commuting for people in our community, or the fear of being able to get to work when a construction project happens, or, you know, there's so much, it's so much bigger and broader, I think, than just trying to figure out how to like run a road across a field. You know, so I would really like look forward, I hope, to this getting to be a more expanded conversation. I feel like I would like wholeheartedly support EOTC money into a process that takes that broad view, that like has RAFTA as like an incredibly central partner in it. So that, you know, it's just, I don't know when that, maybe that pivot happens when the EIS process starts, but it's, you know, it's really hard to just have like just the City of Aspen constituency have some sort of import in voices over like the thousands that are affected by this corridor.
Yes.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes. So to answer you, yes, absolute stakeholder and partner. Yes, involved in an EIS process. The reason that the City of Aspen voters are a big part of this is because it has been the community's belief for a while that we have to vote for the use of open space. And that vote for the use of open space for buses across the open space failed. So while there are other people that are impacted and participate in this, the open space that is Maroldt or along this corridor at all was requiring a City of Aspen voter approval to move forward with stuff. So that's why it's a city conversation right now, because we just got to get to a point where we can talk to our constituency and say, hey, this is what we're talking about, because it failed last time.
No,
Can I just add to one thing about that vote?
Yeah.
So that vote failed by, can't remember, 50 or something like that votes in Aspen. It passed with a huge majority in the county. And I know that was just advisory and that the binding vote was the city, but I just wanted to add that to a thing about that vote.
I actually remember a vote that failed countywide.
There've been so many.
So you know, some have passed, some have failed.
I know there's been several votes, so definitely the one I'm referring to was, like, I can't remember the
When
number,
light
but
rail was involved, it passed.
I guess I would just say that, like, my hope for this process would be that vote becomes a proxy for a community vision, right? Like that, so the ultimate yes, no on how to use open space becomes a yes on a project that the community as a whole feels really great about, you know, not.
You would want that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
But we haven't done that work for that vote to function as that proxy. You know, so I think that it seems like getting the vision around what we actually want and like the shared goals and how the pavement on the ground reflects those goals then becomes, okay, City of Aspen, like we're relying on you all to support that.
I mean, from what we're told, the process does. Community input is part of it. And when I say community, I'm saying Aspen. Like, Aspen is not going to direct this single-handedly. That's not how the process works. And while we are polling us because that's under our purview,
Just maybe the polling is around goals. Like maybe someone's goal is, I don't really care
Yes.
what you do as long as it moves me faster.
Yeah, yeah,
don't know.
and we had that conversation about what the polling questions would look like and if they would be goal and value oriented, and hopefully they will be able to reflect that as well. Yes.
Okay, Sarah, did you have you wanted to?
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification is that the Aspen City Council is facing whether to commit between $2 and $3 million to a study, and they feel like they don't have sufficient input from the community before making that financial commitment to that process. And the polling is intended to assist them with that about whether to actually go down the road of an EIS. And since they are the primary funder, potentially the full funder of that, that is certainly within their purview to ask that. I think that what you're bringing up are really valid points, and I think they come after that if the decision is to do a new EIS, where the city of Aspen is a similar stakeholder as many of the other parties that you have mentioned this evening. The city of Aspen doesn't have more say or less say than those other stakeholder groups in the NEPA process.
And I guess I would just say that, I would want us to fund it, but we won't have, like, the broader community that we represent wouldn't have that participation. It's just
right, but that's
it's
your
the
own
city's-
constituent management, and we don't want to interfere in the constituent management for any of the other governing bodies up here.
Sure,
and,
but the
and
EOTC
that's why we
is a
are,
body that could be asked more broadly. Hey, we want you to fund this, and so we're going to ask your constituents to weigh in on it too. It's it's sort of it's how we get the ball rolling, and how big we think about our stakeholder group. That you pull people in when you're halfway down the line. It doesn't feel like meaningful stakeholdering.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
I want to. It looks like I see batteries dying, but I want to make sure I don't do anything too abruptly here. If you don't mind, I'm going to move us along to potential meeting dates for 2025. We know we have October 2nd, 2025 on our list, but we also anticipate we're going to be meeting before then in breakout groups, if I can call it that. Is that how you interpret that, and can we organize?
October 2nd was just the lob for our annual budget and work plan approval for 2026. But probably the three managers, I can go through them to get with you all about
Thank you.
future meeting dates.
So we don't have
that
to
we
figure
obviously
out
need.
dates right now. I don't want to do a doodle poll right now.
I was
Right.
going to suggest that because when we do it at this table, they tend to maybe not work too well. And so perhaps we can commit to working together to figure
Great,
that
thank you. If we can do that.
Says
yeah.
the man with his jacket on.
out. He's hitting the 9-hour mark.
Yeah. And I also wanted to just bring up, so other meeting dates, not necessarily proposed topics. We have lists of proposed topics for one possible budget supplementals and conversation topics. Do we need to explore more tonight? Tori?
Well, on the topic of the calendar, so your suggestion is maintaining one all-inclusive EOTC meeting next October, and between then having the breakout group meetings only?
That is what we are required to do. We can always hold more.
Breakout or whoever can attend?
Same thing.
No, they're not.
So
Oh, well,
if,
sorry then.
if I could suggest, and we can go through with the managers again too, we had talked about maybe there seemed to be a broader set of issues than just the ones that are within the EOTC purview that the entities want to get together on. I think what we had suggested was gathering the three entities under a broader umbrella, not under the EOTC umbrella, and putting together, and I'm making up topics here because you guys should choose them, but maybe it's affordable housing that we need to be talking about, or something else that's outside of this purview. The county be happy to host that first one. We've been trying to get kind of post-election and post-budget adoption before we start looking for that date.
So it'll be in the early part of the year.
Yeah, what I would suggest is, if there's an interest in those broader topics, you let us work out the details on that. I think we have direction on the topics that you want us to bring back on the EOTC and we can work on finding those in a timely manner.
I just want to check, is that, I see Steve has his hand up. I'll start with Steve and then I'll come to Tom.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Being this is my last EOTC meeting after 12 years of meetings, the once a year meeting does not work. We have so many more issues like Don just talked about, and I think that's a really good idea to, maybe it's along the line of our work sessions where we're not actually taking votes at the meetings, but getting together and talking about these really important issues and discussing possible solutions is really a good idea, and I urge you to all do that. Also to, I think, bring the public in on these greater topics. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Are you sure you want to stop now? This is your last meeting. Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest just pragmatically that we have a follow-up meeting like in January. We brought up a lot of issues about supplemental studies and budget things. I think we should wrap that up so we go through the year and we know what we're doing. So I would recommend an all bodies meeting in January. And then I also would recommend a budget review meeting a month before we do the budget approval meeting so we don't fall into this again. Now, any other meetings in between, great, but I think I would add those. So a minimum of 3 meetings next year, January, summer, and then approve the budget.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Just
Alyssa.
to echo what Tom's saying, I chair COG, and one of the things we do at COG is we have a budget work session, and anyone that can participate in that does. And then we have a meeting in which we do like an abbreviated discussion about the budget, and then we approve it. And that really helps because we used to do it like this. It was just way too much, and we have so many people from different municipalities. So I would echo that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and we can add meetings as we see the need, but I appreciate that. Okay, I think what I need then is a motion to adjourn. I think if we
moved.
If you have, thank you. But but I think it has to go from individual jurisdictions.
Oh, does it really?
Okay, well, so what's with this lightening up on the rules? Okay, motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, and we got you out an hour behind schedule, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it was.